Chapter 182. He said that the roots of the Yanjiao tribe were still in the old land, and the veins of the fire were still there. The fire must be ignited in the old land. Xiaofan really didn't know this. Maybe the shaman knew, but didn't say it. No wonder those ancestors wanted to go back to the old land, and there was such a reason. For the tribesmen who were wandering outside, and for the tribe to prosper again, the return of the tribe was really necessary. Many people were waiting to welcome a new life. The travel team would not stay in the Feng tribe for a long time. After all, they were just passing by and used it as a place to rest before reaching the central region. After a good rest and enough preparation, the leaders called the people in the team and prepared to set off. Xiaofan left some things for He's family, and exchanged some cattle and sheep for them. He didn't take the water moon stone. There were 2 old people and 1 young in his family, and they had no fighting power. If other wanderers were jealous and wanted to kill them, it would not be worthwhile. Fortunately, Guaer had promised to take care of them, so He's family would not be too difficult. Even if it was difficult, He didn't care, because there was hope. Maybe, in a few years, he could take his family and wanderers living in other places back to the tribe. What a blessing to be able to return in his lifetime. After saying goodbye to He, Xiaofan and the travel team left the Feng tribe. Not long after the traveling team left, Guaer's father came back from his patrol. After entering the house, he wanted to ask Guaer what he had done with the wood that he had dragged back. If he hadn't dealt with it, he would have chopped it into firewood. Opening the leather curtain, he stepped into the house. However, when his eyes met an object somewhere in the house, his scalp tightened, and his hand quickly pulled out the knife on his waist. However, before he took the next step, a figure rushed out, and let out a heart-wrenching cry. "Father!" Guaer held his father's leg tightly. "Father, we have so much firewood. Don't cut my wood carving." Wood carving? Guaer's father was stunned, and looked over there carefully again. It's true. No wonder he felt a little strange. It was just a wood carving. However, it was really not easy to carve a wooden sculpture like this. When he first saw it, he thought that he had encountered some wild beast from the forest. Where did this wood carving come from? Guaer's father put away his knife and walked over. He looked at the wood carving in front of him with great interest. "Didn't I tell you? It's a piece of wood I dragged back. I asked that traveler called Xiaofan to carve it." Guaer told his father about the matter and also mentioned that he had promised to take care of He's family. After that, he was a little worried. He lowered his head and quickly raised his eyelids to look at his father for fear of being beaten. Unexpectedly, Guaer's father was silent for a while and then said, "Just do what you promised." Xiaofan, who had already left the Feng tribe, didn't know the conversation between Guaer and his father. He and the others continued to walk along another river. The upper reaches of this river were deep in the grassland, and the lower reaches would converge with another tributary. The combined river would flow through some places in the central region. This time, they didn't have a raft, so they had to walk. Just like what those travelers had said, after several days of continuous travel, the destination was close. "If we go a little further, we will be in the central region. Tell the people in the team to pay attention. In front of us is the territory of 2 big tribes in the central region. Don't provoke them." Some experienced travelers warned the newcomers. Tribes that could establish themselves in the central region, no matter how big or small, always had their uniqueness. Some ordinary small tribes couldn't compare with them. Generally speaking, these tribes in the central region wouldn't take the initiative to attack travelers' teams. When they arrived here, they would meet many travelers from different places. However, now they wouldn't greet each other so peacefully. They were all on guard against each other. When they passed by a hilly area, several travelers next to them said to Xiaofan, "Look over there." Next to the travelers' team was a continuous low hill area. On these hills, there was a group of mountain rock paintings with tribal characteristics. The painting on the rock paintings wasn't very detailed, and it didn't look like a human. However, there was a face that belonged to a human. On the huge independent rectangular rock in front of Xiaofan, there was such a painting. On the top was a human face with a round face and a wide mouth. What was strange was that under the face, the body part looked similar to that of an ordinary person, but there were two more pairs of hands. The painting style was rough and exaggerated. It was like a person with a strange body proportion with 6 hands standing there. His mouth was wide open, and his 6 hands were spread out. His 2 legs were also spread out at a certain angle. It looked like a spider with a human face. The person in the painting looked at the passers-by passing by. Behind him, on other parts of the rock, there were some crisscrossing lines. It didn't look like they were randomly chiseled. Instead, they were drawn in a regular pattern with a purpose. What is this? You asked the experienced travelers next to him, wanting to get a more precise answer from them. As for Xiaofan, when he saw this painting, he already knew who it was. The 8 limbs tribe had been painted and recorded on the ancestors' animal skin roll and the stone wall of the cave. In the cave near the mountain foot area, when Xiaofan saw the painting on the stone wall for the first time, he thought it was a spider. Later, when he read more animal skin rolls, he knew that it wasn't a spider, but an 8-limbed weirdo like a spider. There were some huge black rocks next to it, which were also carved with various faces and 8-limbed weirdos. Look, it was indeed a big tribe in the central area. They had started to draw boundaries and set up boundary markers so far away, as if they were afraid that others didn't know it was the 8 limbs tribe. As far as the eye could see, there was a group of mountain rock paintings, all of which were very characteristic of the 8 limbs tribe. People who passed by here, even if they didn't have good memories, would be engraved in their minds by the long group of mountain rock paintings. It was hard to forget. The man next to him said, "We haven't really entered the territory of the 8 limbs tribe. The place we are going is between the 8 limbs tribe and the Mang tribe. Jade in the Mang forest and silk clothes of the 8 limbs, are these 2 tribes?" You had long heard from some travelers about these 2 strong tribes in the central area and the products produced by these 2 tribes. However, he had never seen the jade of the Mang tribe, nor the clothes made of silk in the legend. Jade in the Mang forest and silk clothes of the 8 limbs tribe were famous products of these 2 tribes. Both the jade in the Mang forest and the silk clothes produced by the 8 limbs tribe were very expensive. Generally speaking, for small tribes from remote areas, they wouldn't exchange these 2 products, because it was unnecessary. Linen had already made many people flinch. If there was a more expensive silk clothes, even if they brought it back, they would just put it aside. In short, their consumption level hadn't reached that high, so they couldn't appreciate it. For people who paid more attention to practical use, it was even more useless. In addition to the rock paintings of the 8 limbs tribe, there are also the marks of the Mang tribe nearby. Look, there is the totem mark of the Mang tribe in front. The traveler next to him pointed out to Xiaofan and Yu. There was a bamboo forest over there. It wasn't very tall, but it was very thick and looked very sturdy. Those leaves could even wrap Xiaofan's hand. Almost every thick bamboo was engraved with pictures, which looked like the totem patterns of the Mang tribe. Other than that, there were also some things that looked like wind chimes hanging on the bamboo. The strings of bamboo collided with each other with the wind, making sounds of different pitches. It was very pleasant to the ears. Under normal circumstances, many people would go over to chop the bamboos, or take away those bamboo wood wind chimes that could play music. But in fact, very few people would touch those things, just like most people didn't dare to cut the rock paintings on the hills of the 8 limbs tribe. That was the symbol of the 2 tribes. Whoever touched it would be a provocation to the 2 tribes. The members of the travel team would not commit such a suicidal act. It was precisely because of this that before they came, they had repeatedly warned the people who were traveling for the first time not to offend those powerhouses without knowing the situation. Because travelers often passed by this place, a very obvious path had been opened up. On the left side of this road, there was a long row of rock paintings of the hills. The eight-limbed people of the Eight Limbs tribe were in the shape of Vajra glaring at the passers-by, which brought a lot of psychological pressure to every traveler, and made them more afraid of the Eight Limbs tribe. Strong people were strong, even their paintings were so powerful. On the other side of the road, there was a completely different style of bamboo paintings and wind chimes. The refreshing style did not make everyone feel relaxed. Instead, every time there was a knock on the bamboo, everyone's heart tightened. It was as if there were pairs of eyes staring at them from the bamboo forest. It was like a death sentence, causing the group to unconsciously speed up, not to mention touching the bamboo and wind chimes. This was the demonstration of the strong. In their own way, they let the passers-by remember their strength, not just the jade stones and silk clothes. After they passed that section, there were no more rock paintings of the hills, and the knock of the bamboos gradually faded away. Only then did they let out a sigh of relief. Their nervous mood also gradually calmed down. Further ahead, there will be a valley. It's a very good place for trading. And because it's very close to the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, no one dares to make trouble there. A traveler in front said. Soon, Xiaofan saw the trading place. It was like a small market, with some wooden and bamboo houses scattered around. There were also many travelers from different places, or people from nearby tribes trading here. Because there were two big mountains behind them, they sometimes had to offer some gifts to the people of the two tribes. Entering this market, Xiaofan felt that it became lively all of a sudden. Some people put their goods on the ground, and at the bottom, there was a layer of grass curtain or animal skin. And some people set up a simple shelf, and put their goods on it. It was a very simple market, but it was the biggest and busiest trading place that Xiaofan had seen since he came to this world. Chapter 183. There were a lot of pottery around, as well as painted pottery with various patterns. Pottery figurines, pottery reliefs, and many colorful paintings that represented the characteristics of each tribe were not only practical, but also beautiful in form, with the mysterious and magical artistic colors of this world. Those spherical or hemispherical pottery were used as containers to carry more objects, and those with ears were used to tie ropes. Not only these common objects, but also some more creative pottery, such as some pottery utensils for cooking and drinking, and those small, pointy urns. What's that for? Xiaofan pointed to the place where some small, pointy urns and funnels were placed, and asked the person next to him. Oh, that. It said that it's used to make wine. The person next to him answered, his eyes full of envy when he looked over there. I heard that those are wine-making utensils. Those people also use those pottery to carry wine, and it's very popular here. I went to change one of those pottery, but it didn't produce wine. However, it's still more convenient to use that kind of pottery for storage and transportation. It's not easy to flush out the stopper, and the pointy bottom is also more wear-resistant, so it's good to use. I'll change a few more later. If I can produce wine, that'll be great. What's wine? You was curious. Wine? A kind of water? That person didn't know either. I've never drunk it, but the team leader said that wine is made with food. The tribes that can make wine are all big tribes, and they don't lack food. Several young people around also showed envy. They didn't lack food, and they could enjoy material and spiritual enjoyment. Who wouldn't be envious? Many tribes in the central region developed quickly in animal husbandry and agriculture. With food surplus, there was a rapid development of handicraft industry, and there was a rich variety of art. This was also why travelers said that the central region was a very wonderful place. There was a relationship between function and decoration in the design of art. In such a place, people's labor and daily affairs were mainly for survival. After all, survival was the most important thing, and life was ranked second. Creativity was for a better life. Therefore, in all creation activities, even in such a barbaric and primitive place, the design of pottery was centered around people and practicality as the foundation. Many people in the tribe worshipped these pottery, but it was not necessarily because they followed the trend. There were many factors of worshipping the craft. Xiaofan saw a variety of pottery on display. While the old men of the Yanjiao tribe were immersed in their antique pottery, there were already more varieties here. If the old men of the Yanjiao tribe saw this, who knew what they would think, especially Xing, who had shown off his collection of pottery in front of Xiaofan. In addition to pottery, there were also many jade products. Most of them were in the shape of strips, half rings, or even less than half rings. A few were in the shape of bridges. Some jade stones had nothing on them, only one or a few holes. Some jade stones were engraved with complicated patterns. There were even jade ornaments that were entirely carved. Are those jade stones? Yu's eyes lit up as he looked over. Yes, those are jade stones. It's just that they are not good jade stones. When you go, pay attention. Every person in the Mang tribe is carrying a piece of jade. Most of them are in this shape. That traveler gestured and drew a bridge. As for those who carry jade stones like this, you should stay far away from them. He then drew a half ring and a circle. These people belong to the higher ranks in the Mang tribe. Let's not provoke them. The surrounding youths quickly nodded. Don't just look around. Let's go find a cave to rest in. The experienced traveler called out to the youths who were looking around. Don't get separated. If you get separated here, you'll be at a disadvantage. You might even lose your life. In this lawless place, everything was naturally decided by strength. The tribes in the central region were generally stronger, so the travelers would gather in large groups to be safer. From here on out, the traveler group would not be so idle. They also did not have the time to pay attention to the scenery. They had to be on guard at all times. There were many people from other tribes around. Anyone could become their enemy. When you were not paying attention, they would stab you, rob you, and then disappear without a trace. It was not uncommon. There was a mountain not far from this market. The mountain was not very high, but there were many caves. Some were naturally formed, and some were dug out by travelers or other people. Some were big, some were small. The Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe would not care about the caves here. Whether the people who came to the market could live in the caves depended on their own strength. If they walked a little further, they would enter the territory of the Mang tribe or the Eight Limbs tribe. There were also built houses, which were safer. But if they wanted to live there, they would have to exchange more things. The travelers were not willing to go there. Xiaofan followed the group to the front of the mountain. Bang! A man who was beaten until his bones were twisted and covered in blood was thrown down from a high place. He died after 2 strokes. But the others around seemed not to have seen it. They were busy with their own things, talking about their own things. The travelers were not surprised. This kind of thing happened every day. Robbing caves, fighting over things, quarreling because they were not pleasing to the eye. They could see it all the time. But sometimes it was just a small fight, and sometimes it was a life loss. As they approached the mountain, changes gradually took place in the traveling team. The experienced and strong soldiers surrounded the injured or too young and inexperienced people in the middle. At this time, there was no division of tribes. Since they came together, they naturally had a cooperative relationship. Here, they had to be united, or they would be at a disadvantage. There were big and small caves. There were hundreds of people in this group, so they naturally needed a big cave to live in. And the competition for a big cave was also very fierce. The few leaders at the front of the group looked up the mountain. Experienced travelers could guess the general distribution of power at a glance from the people walking around outside the cave. They couldn't afford to offend those who were too strong, and those who were too weak definitely didn't live in a big place. Therefore, they targeted those groups that were not too strong but still had some ability to make a move. Over there. Fan Ning pointed in a direction. The other leaders also nodded in agreement, indicating their own people to follow. A large group of hundreds of people coming over would inevitably attract some attention. Some people had some impression of this group and were more familiar with them. They could guess their style of doing things. And some of the newcomers were asking around. To stand firm in this chaotic place, it was necessary to know yourself and know your enemy. Some of the young people who came here for the first time, the novelty and excitement at the beginning had already been affected by the oppressive gazes and the strange atmosphere around them. They did not even dare to look at those people. Raise your head, don't look like a coward. You're throwing the face of the tribe. Someone in the group said in a low voice. Xiaofan looked at the other people on the mountain. They all looked like humans. No one had an extra pair of hands or a missing pair of legs. But, there were still obvious differences in their facial features and figures. Some people had makeup on their faces, some did not. Their clothing also had different tendencies. With a rough look, one could see that this was really a hodgepodge place. It was Xiaofan's first time seeing so many people from different tribes in one place. Walking up the mountain a little, the group went straight to a slightly bigger cave. At the entrance of that cave, there were a few people sitting. Seeing the large group going over, they also called out to the people inside the cave to come out. We'll take this cave. A tall and skinny person walked out and said. Oh, Fan Ning continued to lead the group forward. Now, this is ours. Needless to say, the fight had already begun. A figure suddenly shot out from the cave. With a sound of breaking air, it rushed towards Fan Ning, who was at the front of the group. Feeling this sudden gust of wind, Fan Ning's eyes slightly narrowed. A cold light flashed through his eyes. His ankle that was walking forward suddenly turned. His shoulder shook. Instead of retreating, he went forward and met the attack head-on. The opponent's swinging leg attack was very swift and fierce. Xiaofan did not doubt that this kick could make a person's head move. After being blocked by Fan Ning, the opponent landed on the ground and switched to using both arms. The swinging arms were like soft knives as they flew up and down. When Fan Ning dodged, the shadow of the arms directly smashed onto the rock at the side, leaving a deep mark on it. Xiaofan was a young man, so he was also surrounded by the travelers in the middle of the group. The young people around him were silent, their eyes wide open as they stared at the dangerous battle unfolding before them. When they just arrived, the person who was beaten into a bloody mess left a very deep impression on them. Perhaps, the person who lost would end up like that. Losing the cave was a small matter, but if you lose your life, then you have nothing left. But, sometimes, even though you know it's dangerous, you can't take a step back. Do you know what kind of frog is team leader Fan Ning's favorite frog? You asked Xiaofan in a low voice. What is it? Xiaofan looked at you. He remembered that the pattern around Fan Ning's eyes was not very special. It was different from Yu's bright poison frog pattern. The overlord frog from the horned frogs. He likes the same as the leader. Yu said. The leader of the Pu tribe, Guang Ho, looked like a dumpling. Later, Xiaofan saw some of the Pu tribe's frogs that were obviously much bigger than the other frogs. Only then did he know that Guang Ho's appearance was more similar to the horned frogs. But the Pu tribe's several gigantic beasts, their temperament was very brutal. Fan Ning liked the overlord horned frogs the most. His temperament was also similar to the overlord horned frogs. Moreover, his strength was also one of the top in the Pu tribe. Although this team leader of the Pu tribe's travel team did not have a good attitude towards Xiao Xian had to admit that this person, Fan Ning, was still very capable. On the other side, Fan Ning caught the opponent's carelessness. It looked like a simple and unadorned move, a fist that was nothing special, but it carried a tyrannical force. It broke through the air and directly hit the opponent's chest. Puff! The person who took this punch was sent flying and fell on the ground 10 meters away. He struggled to get up and wanted to say something, but he spat out a mouthful of blood. The faces of many people in the opposing team changed. They looked at Fan Ning, who was standing there in fear. Although Fan Ning's body also took a few hits, and his beast skin clothes were torn and stained with blood, but compared to the person who was sent flying, Fan Ning's situation was already considered good. Moreover, Fan Ning was still standing there very calmly. Xiaofan felt that Fan Ning's punch was actually a little restrained. On the way to the central region, he also saw Fan Ning hunting prey. At that time, he was really ruthless. If he used all his strength in that punch, the opponent would have already died. If he added more strength, the opponent's bones would probably be broken. The other party was helped up, and blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth. Even if his bones were not injured, the powerful punch just now had caused quite a bit of damage to his internal organs. It was impossible for him to continue fighting. He could feel that even though his bones were not broken, but there were already cracks. If he took another hit, he would be in a much worse state. Everyone rush up and continue fighting? Not worth it. There were still people in the opposing team who wanted to stand up and say something, but after being glanced at by Fan Ning's slightly narrowed eyes with a cold light, they retreated back. Who else? Fan Ning stood there, his line of sight swept across the crowd in front of the cave. Many people did not dare to look directly at his eyes. The tough and tyrannical aura just now, the quick and violent attack, completely broke some people's courage. Even the leader was defeated. Even if there were still many people with decent strength in the team, they could not win in terms of numbers. Looking at the opposing team, each of them was in a good state of mind, especially the leader, who stood there with a fierce face, looking like he could still fight for a few more rounds. Forget it, let's go. They could not win against the leader, they could not win in terms of numbers. They might as well save their strength to look for the next target. The group of people who were originally blocking the entrance of the cave started to pack up and leave. They planned to snatch the cave that they saw yesterday that was slightly smaller than this one. The people in that cave seemed to be easier to deal with. With such a result, you gave Xiaofan a very proud look. Look, our leader is so domineering. At the same time, you also thought, worthy of being the one who drew the Overlord Frog's eye mark. If only leader Fan Ning could have the same brow bone as the leader, then he would really have the look of the Overlord Frog. Not only you, many of the Pu tribe's youngsters were also looking at Fan Ning fervently, their eyes filled with worship. On the surface, Fan Ning had the cold and solemn look of an expert, but in fact, he was also feeling bitter in his heart. If he were to fight again, he would definitely lose very miserably. Those few hits on his body had also injured his internal organs. He was only pretending that he was fine and needed to rest properly. He did not use his full strength in the last punch because he wanted to save some strength to guard against the future. Snatching the cave only needed to intimidate the opponent and force them out. Let's go in and pack up, Fan Ning said to the others. The group swarmed in. Their group was very big, but this cave was enough to accommodate all of them. Although there was not much space for them to move around, but to be able to occupy a cave here was already not bad. When everyone was happily walking in, a person's voice came out from the cave. What's all the noise about? The voice had a bit of leisure and laziness, and even had the sound of yawning. Hearing this voice, the people in the group did not expect that after they had already snatched the cave, there was still someone who dared to stay here. Could it be that someone in the previous group was sleeping too soundly and did not hear the noise? Who? Come out. We have already taken this cave, you hurry up and pack up your things and get out. One of the leaders in the group shouted with surprise and anger. Chapter 184. Tap, 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 the sound of footsteps came from inside the cave. The person inside the cave was walking out step by step. His footsteps were neither fast nor slow, with a hint of carelessness. He was not alarmed by so many strangers at the entrance of the cave. There was no bonfire in the cave. It was pitch black, so at first, the people at the entrance of the cave could not see the person inside. They were only alarmed by the sudden appearance of this person, so they all picked up their weapons and pointed them at the person walking out. In a place like this, even an inconspicuous person could cause you trouble, so you had to be cautious. Near the entrance of the cave, the light became brighter and brighter. The person walking out of the cave gradually revealed his figure. That person looked very young, wearing a linen robe. Although it was a little wrinkled, it could be seen that this linen robe was much better than the one Xiaofan saw in the Pu tribe. The weave was also more delicate. At the collar, there were some small bamboo pieces that were connected together to form an ornament, making the linen robe a not so simple. That person raised his arm and stretched. The light at the entrance of the cave was a little dazzling. He grabbed his messy hair with one hand and looked at the person standing at the entrance of the cave. Another person? You are? The few leaders at the front of the group looked at him and asked. This cave is ours. Get out of here. There was a younger person next to him. He originally wanted to grab a better position in the cave, but when he started, he was shocked by the noise from inside the cave. As a result, his position was taken by the person behind him. Now he was not in a good mood, so his tone was naturally a little harsh. But he did not notice that the arrogant tone of the leader of his group had become much gentler. He also did not notice that some of the more experienced travelers in the group suddenly changed their expressions. Seeing that the other party did not answer, he was about to say something, but his mouth was covered by a few older people next to him and he was dragged into the group. Xiaofan looked at the person who walked out. He knew that although linen had become popular in the central region, there were many people wearing linen in the bazaar. However, the linen on the person who walked out was much better. He even wore well-polished bamboo ornaments. Most importantly, there was a piece of jade hanging from his waist. The experienced people in the team had said that in the Mang tribe, almost everyone had a piece of jade. However, some of them had a very small arc, while others had a half-circle or even a circle. It could be said that in the Mang tribe, status was related to jade. However, the young man in front of him had a piece of jade that had a 240-degree arc on his waist. Although there were no engravings on the jade, there were some clear green lines like bamboo. It could be imagined that this person was not a nobody. Although they did not know why this person was sleeping in the cave, they could not afford to offend him. This was what the leaders thought at the same time. That person seemed to casually glance at the team of travelers and said, I have already slept well. You can go in. No one in the team walked in, but following that person's footsteps, the team that was blocking the entrance of the cave quickly made a path for him. Some young people who did not know what was going on were pulled away by the older people around them. With no one blocking the entrance of the cave, more light from outside the cave shone in. This also allowed everyone to see this strange young man more clearly. He was quite white and did not look strong. He also did not feel strong. He did not have the imposing manner of the leader Fan Ning and the others. He was dressed well, but they did not know why everyone was so afraid of him. When everyone's eyes swept over the piece of jade hanging from his waist, the people who were cursing in their hearts just now lowered their eyelids and did not look at him. For a moment, the cave quieted down. The people who were discussing excitedly just now also shut their mouths. The atmosphere was somewhat tense. Ta ta ta, the sound of the other person walking slowly was very clear to everyone. Even the noise outside the cave could not cover the sound of the footsteps. Suddenly, the person who was walking out of the cave stopped in his tracks and looked sideways at the team of travelers. The few leaders at the front of the team suddenly felt nervous. They exchanged glances and thought about what they should do if something unexpected happened. But they did not expect that the other person only looked at a place in the team and smiled meaningfully. "You have guts. When you go out, don't walk alone." The other people in the team followed that person's gaze and looked at a place. There, Xiaofan was standing with a frown. After saying that sentence, that person left. He went out and stood outside the cave to stretch his body. He moved his arms and looked down the mountain. Then he jumped. This place was halfway up the mountain. The slope was a little steep. There was still some height from the ground below. However, when the people outside the cave looked down, they did not see that person's figure. "Don't look anymore. He has already left," Fan Ning said and walked in front of Xiaofan. His face was cold. Probably because he was injured, his face looked worse. "Have you offended the people of the Mang tribe?" "No, it's my first time here. I have never seen anyone from the Mang tribe before." Xiaofan was also puzzled. That person only spoke halfway. How could he know what he was talking about? "It's best that you haven't offended them." Fan Ning snorted heavily. Because of this snort, it affected the injury in his body. He coughed a few times and almost coughed up blood. But in order to maintain his face and stabilize the morale of the team, he swallowed that mouthful of blood back. "Let's clean up the cave," a leader in front said. Worried that there would be other people in the cave, they lit a fire and walked in with torches. They checked carefully, took out some rubbish and threw it outside. Then they found a place to rest. After rushing for such a long time and arriving at the central region, they had been tense. Now that they could finally get a cave, they really needed a good rest. Some of the injured people also needed to recuperate. Xiaofan, Yu, and a few others also found a place to rest. They lit a small fire and roasted the meat they brought. Only when they were full would they have strength. "Xiaofan, you really don't know that person?" Yu asked. "I don't know him. I also don't know what he meant by that sentence." Xiaofan had been thinking about the reason. He even wondered if the other party had found out that he was from the Yanjiao tribe. However, he did not hear about any grievances between the Mang tribe and the Yanjiao tribe. Moreover, Xiaofan did not feel any malice from the other party. Of course, there was no kindness either. He was just a stranger. On the other side, the person who left the cave was already near the market. He did not walk into the market. Instead, he walked about 100 meters away from the market. Whoosh! A slender spear shot at him and stabbed into the ground in front of him. Almost half of the spear was buried in the ground in an instant. Chu Su. Hand over by Ling. A white figure appeared in front of Chu Su from 100 meters away in the blink of an eye. It was a young woman wearing a white silk dress. At this moment, her beautiful face was filled with anger as she looked at Chu Su. "Isn't it just a spider? How many days have you been chasing me?" Chu Su yawned and said carelessly, "You care about your spider. What about my bamboo rat, which I painstakingly raised? You will compensate me? I was planning to raise it for a few more days and make a big pot of soup to eat. Ah, but when I went back to take a look, oh! There are only bones left." Chu Su's face turned cold as he said the last sentence. "I can compensate you with my silk dress for your bamboo rat." The woman in white softened her tone and said, "Hey, do you think everyone cares about the smell of spiders in your tribe? Do you think the Mang tribe has nothing good? No matter what, you have to hand over by Ling today." The woman in white didn't back down. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Wait! Before the woman took action, Chu Su quickly stopped her. Looking at the sky, Chu Su's line of sight stopped at a certain place. His angry face revealed a smile as he raised his palm. After a breath, a green figure flashed by and finally stopped on Chu Su's palm. It was a bird less than the size of a palm. Its wings were like knives and its tail was like a swallow's. Because of its small size, it was easy to mistake it for an insect if one didn't look carefully. What did you find? Chu Su touched the bird's head with his finger and said. The bird chirped and pecked Chu Su's finger lightly. I finally found those thieves. Chu Su's face was filled with joy. I have something to do. I won't talk to you anymore. Here you go. While speaking, Chu Su took out a white ball from a hide bag hidden in his clothes and threw it to the woman in white. The woman in white quickly caught it and looked at the white ball in her hand. It was originally a spider covered with long white hair, but now it was wrapped into a fist-sized ball. Moreover, there were several bamboo thorns on its body. It was these few bamboo thorns that caused the white spider to suffer great pain. Chu Su. The woman in white was even angrier. What are you yelling for? It's not dead yet. It's much better than my poor bamboo rats. It should be punished for eating so many of my bamboo rats. Will it die if I stab it a few times? It deserves to die. The woman in white didn't have time to say anything else. She just held back her anger and pulled out a few thin bamboo thorns on the white ball. After a while, the white ball gradually opened, and long legs with white hair stretched out. The fist-sized white ball expanded more than twice. See, it's not dead yet. If it eats my bamboo rats next time, I'll stab it to death. Chu Su didn't want to stay here any longer. He put away the bag. I'm going to catch the thief. I'd like to see who dares to steal my bamboo rats. Do you really think I have a good temper? The green bird had already taken off, and Chu Su followed closely behind. The woman in white hesitated for a moment, but she also followed. She also found that some of the spider webs in the tribe had been taken by someone. She didn't know if it was the same as the people in the Mang tribe who stole the jade stones and bamboo rats. After Xiaofan ate his food and rested for a while, he went out of the cave with you and the others. The travel team was divided into two groups. One group went out to trade, and the other group stayed in the cave. They took turns to go out in the morning and afternoon. Now, Fan Ning took the people of the Pu tribe out. They would first trade a batch of goods in this market. The things that were popular in the central region might not be popular when they brought them back. They had to choose according to the habits and preferences of the tribes along the river. This way, they could exchange for more things when they brought them back. Just like the coarse linen cloth that Xiaofan saw before, it was nothing here. They could casually exchange it for something else, but when they brought it back, they could exchange it for a good water moonstone, and the water moonstone could be exchanged for even more good things. Because there was no unified currency, the transactions that Xiaofan saw were all kinds of strange items. Sometimes the buyer would take out something that the seller didn't like, so the transaction wouldn't be successful. The things that you took out from the frogs were more popular, so the transaction went smoothly. The drumming tribe's water moonstones were even more successful. If there were enough of them, Xiaofan felt that the drumming tribe's water moonstones could be used as a unified currency. No matter which tribe the seller came from, if Xiaofan wanted to trade with the other party, he could take out the water moonstone and succeed. No wonder the people of the Pu tribe were so excited every time they saw the people of the drumming tribe. The water moonstone was too versatile. One level higher than the water moonstone was the jade of the Mang tribe. It was also versatile in transactions, but it was much more expensive than the water moonstone. Xiaofan had no interest in linen and pottery, but the jade from the Mang tribe had a calm and peaceful atmosphere. Maybe it had other uses for the totem warriors, but Xiaofan felt that he didn't need it. He didn't have enough money, so he shouldn't have any ideas about the jade. Xiaofan was walking with you and the others in the market when a square-faced man came up to them. Do you need jade? The man quickly glanced around, as if he was on guard against something. Then he pulled the loose sleeve of his animal skin clothes. Xiaofan saw a few pieces of jade in the other's sleeve. Jade? Yu was a little confused. He was actually very curious about jade, but the others in the tribe said that jade was not cost-effective, so the people of the Pu tribe basically didn't trade jade. Forget it, I don't have anything to trade for jade. If I trade for jade, I can't trade for other things. Yu refused. The other people of the Pu tribe also had the same idea, only Xiaofan seemed to be hesitating. This jade, how to trade? Xiaofan asked. I saw that the white stone you took out just now is not bad, let's use that. But, it's too eye-catching here, let's go over there. The man pointed to a place. Xiaofan, we'll go with you. Yu said. He heard that this kind of transaction in the market was very dangerous, and many times they moved in groups. After thinking about it, Xiaofan said to Yu and the others, no, you guys go ahead first, I'll catch up after the transaction. I'm very interested in jade, I want to look at it for a while. Yes, we have a lot of different types of jade, some of them are carefully carved. The man quickly said. You really don't need us to go with you? An older man next to you asked Xiaofan. I really don't need it, thank you. Okay. Some transactions in the market may involve some personal secrets. The elder of the Pu tribe did not say anything more, and continued to walk forward with you and the others. When you and the others walked away, Xiaofan said to the jade trader, let's go, but I think that place is good. Xiaofan pointed to another place, there are less people there. That place is also good. The man walked beside Xiaofan, slightly half a step behind, under the loose animal skin clothes, his finger made a gesture. After leaving the market for some distance, Xiaofan stopped. In front of him, on his left and right, there was a person, and behind him was the jade trader in the market. Xiaofan turned to look at the jade trader. The trader was smiling at first, but now he was smiling too. However, there was less friendliness in his smile and more ruthlessness. There were no more jade stones in his loose animal skin coat. 4 people encircled Xiaofan in the middle, and the encirclement gradually narrowed. Kid, hand over the things. The man in front said. Xiaofan did not say anything, nor did he show any panic. Don't hide it, we know exactly what you have on you. But you have guts, with such precious things, you dare to come with me alone. The jade trader's eyes flashed with a greedy light. Precious things? Xiaofan thought for a moment, he had many precious things on him, such as the insect skin clothes, those special silk threads, the drumming tribe's water moon stones, and the fire crystals. Xiaofan's eyes flashed, he remembered what the man in the cave said, you have guts. When you go out, don't go alone. Chapter 185. A wasp the size of a thumb was circling around one of them. Xiaofan had heard from some people in the team that there were some people who specialized in finding treasures. They would raise some animals that could find treasures. Those animals were very sensitive to objects with special energy, such as the fire crystal. With the help of these animals, the success rate of the treasure hunters would be greatly increased. Now, the strange-looking bee that was flying around one of them should be the so-called treasure-hunting bee. What do you want? Xiaofan asked. Don't pretend. I know you have the fire crystal. Or, if you can give us more things, we can let you go, otherwise. The man in front of Xiaofan said fiercely. Sure enough. Xiaofan thought. So, the man in the cave could also sense the fire crystal? After waiting for a while, they saw that Xiaofan didn't speak. One of them became impatient and his face darkened. "Don't talk to him anymore. Since he doesn't want to give it to us, we'll kill him and search his body." For them, Xiaofan was just a newcomer who came with the team for the first time. He was a young man who didn't know anything and didn't have much strength. Every time they made a move, they would make some inquiries. Before this, after the treasure hunting bee found the fire crystal, they pretended to be traders in the market and talked with the traveler team. They knew that this guy named Xiaofan was alone and didn't belong to any of the tribes in the traveler team. They had never heard of the Yanjiao tribe. It was probably a small tribe in a remote place. They didn't need to care about it. It didn't matter if they killed people from such a small tribe. They had even plotted against people from some tribes in the central region, let alone a young man from an unknown tribe. As long as they were not from the Mang tribe, Eight Limbs tribe or other powerful tribes, when it was time to attack, they would attack mercilessly. There were no other people walking around. The four of them surrounded Xiaofan. One of them had a ferocious smile on his face. The muscles on his face and other parts of his body that were not covered by clothes were squirming and bulging strangely. Although they did not inflate like the people of the drumming tribe, they still gave off a very strong feeling. At the same time, some lines appeared on his body. This was a totem warrior with rich experience in robbing. He had a strong murderous aura. Many people who came to the market to trade had been killed by him. His bulging muscles and the obvious totem patterns on his body made him look even more ferocious. He opened his mouth and roared at Xiaofan. That roar sounded like several wild beasts roaring at the same time. It was an obvious threat. If it was in the past, those people who were stopped by them would have already lost their heads out of fear. Their faces would be filled with fear, and they would even promise to take out even more treasures in exchange for their lives. Of course, in the end, they took the treasures, and their lives. Chu Su stood quietly behind a few short trees about 100 meters away, looking at the 5 people over there. He came here with the cyan bird, but he did not expect to see such a scene. "Tsk, I kindly reminded him, but he still came out alone. So, this person is stupid. He deserves to lose his life," Chu Su whispered. Beside him, the woman in white stood there, holding a furry spider in her arms. She frowned slightly and looked at the 5 people over there. She was not interested in the affairs of those small tribes. The reason why she followed Chu Su here was to see if they had anything to do with the people who pulled the spider silk. "They are the thieves?" the woman in white asked. "Yes, it's them. But I didn't know that they would do this kind of thing. Well, they have the guts to steal from the Mang tribe and Eight Limbs tribe. Naturally, they would steal from others," Chu Su said. "Aren't you going to help?" "Why should I help? When the matter over there is finished, I will deal with them." Whether it was Chu Su or the woman in white, for them, people from small tribes did not need their attention. For example, in Chu Su and the woman's eyes, they were civilized people with more technology and rich culture, who thought they were smarter and more powerful, while those from small tribes were stupid and short-sighted barbarians who knew nothing but killing and robbing. The two sides were not at the same level at all. Usually, they did not even bother to say a word to those people. It was rare that he specially reminded them in the cave, but they did not take it seriously. Chu Su was not in the mood to intervene. Looking at the situation over there, the difference in strength between the two sides was too big. It should be over soon. As for whether the surrounded boy was dead or alive, it had nothing to do with him. He was not from his tribe. He could only say that the boy was unlucky and too stupid. "After the matter is over, should I do it or you do it?" Chu Su asked the person next to him. The woman in white touched the spider in her arms and said casually, "Half each." "Okay." While Chu Su and the woman in white were discussing how to torture and interrogate the thief, Xiaofan was standing calmly on the other side of the field, looking at the one who had already used his totem power. "You want the fire crystal? Well, if you have the ability, come and get it," Xiaoxian said. Seeing Xiaoxian's reaction, the four of them were puzzled, but more than that, they felt that this was a reckless brat who didn't know the difference between life and death. He was so slow and stupid. A roar like that of a lion or tiger came out of the totem warrior's mouth. His originally swollen and taut legs wriggled at this moment and became thicker again. Every muscle was full of strength, and it looked as if it could kick an elephant to death. After a loud roar, he rushed towards Xiaoxian. Every step he took covered several meters. Almost in the blink of an eye, he was in front of Xiaoxian. At this moment, the totem power in Xiaoxian's body rose to the extreme in an instant. On the totem in his mind, the flames suddenly surged fiercely, like adding fuel to firewood. His exposed arm was not as swollen as the opponent's, but the blue veins under his skin intertwined and jumped like dragons. Xiaoxian looked straight at the man who was rushing towards him. This was the first time he saw him, but he had a strong killing intent. The fighting intent in his eyes also spread. If everyone has forgotten the Yinjiao tribe, then let them remember it again, Xiaoxian agreed with the shaman's words. Since they did not remember and did not know each other, then it was better to remind them forcefully. They didn't see any big movements from Xiaoxian, who was standing there. He just turned his body slightly, then stretched out his hand and waved his fist in a very simple way. The man who rushed towards Xiaoxian missed. Before he could make another attack, he felt an extremely strong aura explode beside him. This aura was too strong and too fast. It almost reached its peak in a short time, causing his scalp to tingle and his body to slow down. In the next moment, he was punched in the chest. His muscles, which looked very strong and tough, were like fragile fruit skin under the attack of this seemingly ordinary fist. They caved in directly. Visible ripples spread from the point of impact. The sound of bones breaking rang out from the caved-in chest. The expression of the man who originally had a murderous look was now frozen. With this heavy punch, his body seemed to curl up slightly as if he had been frightened. His back, which corresponded to his chest, bulged, making him look like a hunchback. A large amount of blood spurted from his mouth. His whole body flew out directly, then fell heavily on the ground 20 meters away and stopped moving. A gust of wind blew by. The fallen leaves in the forest not far away were blown over by the wind. The sound of the leaves rubbing against the ground could be heard clearly at this moment. The surrounding atmosphere seemed to have frozen. For a moment, no one said a word. Chu Su and the woman in white, who were standing behind the bush, looked over with wide eyes. Their eyelids twitched, as if they could not believe what they were seeing. Just a moment ago, Chu Su was still discussing with the people beside him how to torture and interrogate the thief later. He did not care about the situation over there at all. Moreover, they had already sentenced Xiaoxian to death and expected the whole process to be completed in a very short time. Now, it was over there very quickly. However, the killer and the victim were directly reversed. How could the people who could steal, rob, and kill in this place be easy to deal with? However, that ferocious-looking strong man was killed by that harmless-looking boy with one punch. Chu Su himself was not sure if he could do that. Not only Chu Su, but even the woman in white, who had always been dismissive of those unknown small tribes, was also stunned at this moment. She did not even know that she was plucking the white hair of her beloved pet white-haired spider. Her eyes were fixed on that figure over there. Chu Su, are you sure that he is just a person from a small tribe? The woman in white asked. Which person from a small tribe could have such power at such a young age? Moreover, the other party's control of the totemic power was extremely precise. In a very short period of time, it had soared from nothing to the peak. Although they were still some distance away, she could clearly feel the huge change in that instant. It was as if a ferocious beast had suddenly appeared there and disappeared in the next moment. There was no buffer time. Everything was completed in that short moment. If the other party was really from a small tribe, then, that young man should be called a monster in their tribe. Not hearing Chu Su's answer, the woman in white asked again, "That person, which tribe is he from?" Chu Su swallowed his saliva. "I don't know. He just ran to the cave where the travelers rested to avoid trouble. People with a bit of eyesight would not provoke him. During the time when he was sleeping, the people in the cave had changed two groups. He really did not know which group was from which tribe, and he did not want to know at that time. Usually, he ignored the travelers and the people from small tribes. Who knew that he would see such a thing today?" The woman in white looked at Chu Su expressionlessly. "Idiot." Chapter 186. While Chu Su and the woman in white were guessing which tribe Xiaofan came from, the other three people, who had been completely stunned by the turn of events, finally came to their senses. They had just witnessed with their own eyes how their companion had been killed by this seemingly harmless kid in front of them with one punch. One punch. Without using a knife, without using any other tools or tricks, it was just a simple punch. This kid, who they had regarded as prey, had used only one punch to kill the person who had always been at the front of their group. Their plan had gone awry. They had completely misjudged this person who looked too young. None of them had expected that this kid, who was too young, would be so violent, straightforward and terrifying. It was as if he was demonstrating his strength to someone. At this moment, in the eyes of these three people, Xiaofan was no longer a naive young man who had just joined the team for the first time, but a predator who was like a ferocious beast. They were bold, but not fearless of death. The three people who had finally reacted roared like monsters, and the totem patterns on their bodies were also revealed. Almost at the same time, the three figures were like high-speed beasts, running in three different directions at the same time, intending to leave this place as quickly as possible. It's too late to run now. The totem power in Xiaofan's body rose to the peak again, and the fighting spirit in his eyes rose again, even stronger than before. He fixed his gaze on one of them and chased after him, not looking at the other two. The slightly loose animal skin coat produced a rustling sound as Xiaofan's body moved quickly with the speed of his body. The explosive power from the instant increase also increased his speed to a level faster than the other three. Like a strong gust of wind, he caught up with the person he had targeted. Without waiting for the other person to react, Xiaofan stretched out his hands, and his arm, which was not as thick as the other person's, was already in front of the other person. The fist that he had just used to hit the other person was swung out again. The other person wanted to block with his arm, but found that the moment his arm came into contact with the other person's fist, it bent and slammed into his chest. Bang! The second person, like the previous one, was almost killed with one blow. It was the same kind of violent method. After killing two enemies in a row, Xiaofan did not stop. When he chased after the third person, he kicked a small stone out of the ground. The stone that was kicked away shot towards the third person like a bullet. Puchi. His thigh was hit by the stone, but it didn't penetrate, which showed how strong his body was. That person only paused for a moment, ignoring the pain in his leg, and continued to flee. He regretted choosing such a prey. In the end, the prey became the hunter, and the four of them stepped into the hunter's trap. He now understood that the other party had seen through his intentions from the start. Perhaps the other party had already sensed their presence before he had pretended to be a traitor with the jade stones. He was just pretending not to know. Otherwise, why would he let the other members of the traveling party leave first instead of waiting nearby? That's right, because he was confident that he could take care of the four of them. That kid chose such a secluded place. The four of them pitifully thought that the other party was an idiot. He knew that Xiaofan was fast, but he still underestimated Xiaofan. Just as that person was about to run out of the forest, a leg that was not as thick as his swept towards him, bringing with it a whooshing sound, like those ferocious beasts pouncing on their prey in the forest. Bang! The person who was swept by that leg flew back over 10 meters and fell to the ground. Don't kill me. I have a lot of treasures, jade stones from the Mang tribe, and silk clothes from the Eight Limbs tribe. I just hope that you can spare my life. I can take you to find hidden jade stones. There are a lot, really, a lot. The person who brought Xiaofan here was now lying on the ground. Because of the blood he spat out, his mouth was still red, and it was difficult for him to speak. He struggled for a while, but as if he had lost all his strength, he fell back again. He looked in the direction that his last companion had fled. That person seemed to have escaped successfully. Xiaofan glanced at him, then turned and walked in the direction that the fourth person had fled. Just as Xiaofan turned around, the person who was lying on the ground quietly got up, took out a slender bone knife from his waist and stabbed towards Xiaofan. However, Xiaofan dodged it as if he had eyes on the back of his head. That person only felt his arms go numb, and the bone knife in his hand fell away. Puff! The slender bone knife pierced through his body. That person made a meaningless sound from his throat, looked at Xiaofan in disbelief, and then knelt on the ground. Xiaofan looked at the person in front of him, lifted his foot, and stomped down. Bang! The ground under Xiaofan's feet, with his feet as the center, suddenly caved in, forming a circle with a diameter of nearly 2 meters and a depth of a palm. Chu Su and the woman in white, who were standing behind the bushes, felt as if their hearts had been violently shaken, just like the ground. The white-haired spider nestled in the woman in white's arms had all its hair standing on end, and it was trembling. The little green bird that had brought Chu Su here also stood on the leaf closest to Chu Su, nervously looking in a direction in the air. On the other side, after Xiaofan stomped his foot, he no longer paid attention to the person kneeling on the ground. He turned and walked in the direction of the fourth person. His footsteps were slow, as if he was not in a hurry to catch up. Behind Xiaofan, the person kneeling on the ground had bloody lines spreading, and it looked as if his body had been split open. Such a violent and forceful method made Chu Su feel that he had been blind before. How could he have thought that this young man was an idiot who did not know anything? In fact, he was the idiot, right? He did not even recognize such a powerful person. However, there were 4 people who had surrounded him before. Now that the boy had killed 3 of them, it was obvious that he could not catch up with the 4th one, so he was walking so slowly. Just as he thought about it, Chu Su saw the little green bird hiding in his arms. What's wrong? Chu Su was puzzled. The little green bird hiding in his arms looked up at a certain place in the sky, as if it was very afraid. The sky? Chu Su raised his head and looked over. Then, he saw a huge eagle carrying a person and flying towards the young man. Bang! The man held by the eagle was thrown to the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive, but his bones seemed to be a little twisted. He should be dead, right? The 4 people were all killed in such a short time. In this place, strength spoke louder than words. However, not everyone would reveal their strength to the outside world. Who on earth was that boy? Which tribe did he come from? Chu Su and the woman in white both thought that they should go back and ask people to investigate carefully. Chapter 187. Not much time had passed since the man who pretended to be a traitor brought Xiaofan over to kill all 4 of them. Xiaofan tied up the 4 dead men with straw ropes. There was no one else around for the time being, but there was no guarantee that someone would come over after hearing the commotion. These 4 men probably had accomplices, so Xiaofan didn't plan to stay here for long. While Xiaofan was tying up the men, Cha-Cha was looking left and right with nothing to do. It glanced at the bushes a few times, and then looked at an injured, strange-looking bee that was spinning on the ground. It was the treasure-hunting bee that had been tamed by those people. However, when its master was killed by Xiaofan, it was also affected. It was injured by the turbulent airflow and fell to the ground, unable to fly. No matter how hard it flapped its wings, it could only make a buzzing sound as it spun on the ground. Cha-Cha stared at the treasure-hunting bee for a few seconds, then pecked and ate it. "Alright, let's go, Cha-Cha. Let's find a place to get rid of these people first," Xiaofan said as he jumped onto Cha-Cha's back. Cha-Cha flapped its wings and lifted up the 4 tied-up men with its big claws. Although they were a little heavy, as long as it wasn't a long-distance flight, it wasn't a big problem for Cha-Cha. Before leaving, Xiaofan glanced at the bushes before retracting his gaze. He knew there were people behind him. The young man he saw in the cave was also there. Because of this, when he dealt with the 4 men just now, he used such barbaric and violent methods. He used the same style that Mai and the others used to hunt fearsome beasts. For example, Mai used his fists to beat up the 4-fanged wild boar. Most Yanjiao tribes had the same style and advocated strength. Since it was to intimidate, Xiaofan naturally used the most Yanjiao style. In order to achieve the best effect, he didn't even use a stone knife, only his fists. This should be able to leave an impression on the people there, right? After Xiaofan and Cha-Cha left, Chu Su and the other 2 came out from behind the bush and walked to the place where the battle had taken place to take a closer look. Very strong power. It could even be considered barbaric and overbearing, but this was not the style of the few tribes that Chu Su knew. There were also some who were used to using absolute power to attack their opponents, but they might not be able to do so. Moreover, the opponent was so young. On the other side, Xiaofan and Cha-Cha brought the corpses of the 4 robbers to a forest that did not belong to the Mang tribe or the 8 Limbs tribe. They threw the 4 people there. There were many traces of wild beasts around. They believed that these 4 people would disappear soon. Xiaofan found all of their belongings. Among them, there were some jade stones and a few good animal skins. After cleaning up the bloodstains on his body and putting the jade stones and animal skins into the animal skin bag, Xiaofan adjusted himself, dispelling the murderous aura and calming down his negative emotions. It was like every time he returned to the tribe after a hunt to wash his sword. After a short while, when Xiaofan opened his eyes again, he was no different from his usual self. He still looked like a young and inexperienced boy, and no one could tell that he had killed 4 people not long ago. Patting Cha-Cha's head, Xiaofan said, "Let's go back." The people of the Pu and Pu tribe walked around the market. The things they wanted to trade were also exchanged. When they were almost done, they saw Xiaofan running towards them. They looked at Xiaofan from head to toe and didn't see any injuries on him. Only then did they feel relieved. "How is it?" Xiaofan took out a jade stone the size of an egg and tossed it up and down. "Done." "Hey, let me see. How much better is the jade stone of the Mang forest compared to the water moon stone of the drumming tribe?" you asked. Xiaofan handed over the jade stone. This was only one of the jade stones he found from the 4 people. It contained less energy, but it was very peaceful. When the time came, Xiaofan and the others returned to the cave, and another group of people went out. However, the people who went out were not familiar with Xiaofan. Therefore, when Chu Su asked people to inquire about Xiaofan, they did not get any useful information. 2 days later, the group of travelers began to prepare to leave. This was the last day that they could hang around the market. If they wanted to trade, they had to hurry up. After this market, they would probably have to wait until next year before they could come again. Xiaofan came to an old wine cellar. He exchanged for a bamboo bottle of wine and tasted it. The alcohol content of the wine was not high. It was very light and had a refreshing taste with medicinal properties. Because it was stored in a bamboo bottle, it emitted a bamboo fragrance. However, it still couldn't compare to the juice of the plants on the other side of the river. When Xiaofan drank, he also talked with the old man. In his previous life, he used the grapes in his yard to make wine. The old man was from the Mang tribe. He also had a piece of jade on him, but the texture and pattern of the jade was not as exquisite as Chu Su's. It was also not as big as Chu Su's jade. He didn't have a high status in the Mang tribe, but in the market, some people who liked to blackmail and rob didn't dare to have any ideas about him. The old man was a little arrogant, but when he talked with Xiaofan about making wine, he became very enthusiastic. This was a person who was very enthusiastic about making wine. When talking about his favorite things, he didn't have the same attitude as before. He asked Xiaofan to sit there and took out several kinds of grain wine for Xiaofan to drink. When Xiaofan talked with the old man, he also figured out the function of the pottery tools. If the soil in the Yinjiao tribe wasn't suitable for pottery, they wouldn't have used stone for everything. While they were talking, a person came to the old man's booth. "Hey, you!" The old man was annoyed when he was interrupted while talking with Xiaofan. He was about to scold the person, but when he looked up, he saw a piece of jade hanging on the person in front of the booth. He swallowed his scolding and put on a smile. However, the person in front of the booth didn't pay attention to the old man. He said to Xiaofan, "Hey, come here. I have something to tell you." Xiaofan ignored him and continued to drink the wine in the bamboo tube. Seeing Xiaofan's attitude, Chu Su wanted to scold him, but after thinking for a while, he walked over. When he saw the old man next to him, he waved his hand. The old man smiled and stepped back a few steps to stay away from them. After the old man left, Chu Su lowered his voice and said to Xiaofan, "Are you interested in seeing what happened to the people who robbed you that day?" Xiaofan thought for a while and stood up from the ground. "Where?" Xiaofan wasn't interested in those robbers. What he wanted to see was how the people of the Mang tribe dealt with those people. How strong were the people of the Mang tribe? After talking to you and the others, Xiaofan left with Chu Su and went to a mountain a little further away from the market. That place didn't belong to the Mang tribe or the Eight Limbs tribe. In front of a wooden house on the mountain, a dozen people were gathered. The leader was a tall and strong man with a face full of curly hair. He took a few gulps of water from a clay pot, then swung his hand and smashed the pot on the ground. Bang! The clay pot was smashed into pieces in an instant. "Haven't you found them yet?" the curly-bearded man asked. His eyes were as sharp as knives as he glanced at the people around him. The person closest to the curly-bearded man trembled and said carefully, "Not yet. Even the treasure-hunting bee didn't come back." The curly-bearded man's tone was very dangerous. He seemed to be suppressing his anger. The treasure-hunting bee that he had trained with great difficulty was taken away by those four good-for-nothings. They said they found the fire crystals, but what happened? They didn't find any fire crystals. The four of them disappeared together with the treasure-hunting bee. They were probably all killed by the killers. When he sent people to look for them, they only found blood in one place. If those four people didn't come back, they probably wouldn't be able to. Big brother, could it be that the people of the Mang tribe or the Eight Limbs tribe found something? A person said with fear. Could it be that they know we stole it? Another person said worriedly. In that case, we have to move. Someone suggested, if we wait for them to find us, we won't have much chance to escape. Listening to his subordinate's words, the curly-bearded man became angrier and angrier. His eyes turned red and he punched the stone table in front of him. The air rippled and the stone table was broken into small pieces in the blink of an eye. Stone powder flew everywhere. Behave yourselves today. Don't be targeted. After a pause, the curly-bearded man took a deep breath. Pack your things. We'll leave tomorrow. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a whooshing sound coming from all directions. Thin and hard bamboo thorns shot at the people gathered there like rain. Those who reacted fast had already started to resist with the tools in their hands. Those who reacted slowly were directly shot into hedgehogs. However, even if they were shot like this, they didn't die. They still had consciousness, but they couldn't move. If they moved their muscles slightly, they would feel pain all over their body. And every time they moved, their blood would flow out along those bamboo thorns. Such thin and hard bamboo thorns could only be made by those special bamboos in the Mang forest. People of the Mang tribe. At this moment, without the curly-bearded man's words, the people around scattered and rushed in all directions, hoping that the encirclement there would be weaker and give them a chance to escape. However, before they could run far, they were all tied up by the thin threads. Before they could struggle, they were knocked out or killed directly. Those who wanted to rush out of the encirclement with speed were cut into pieces by the thin threads when they passed between two big trees. Xiaofan could still hear the sound of the strings breaking. The threads cut through the people, but they also broke because of the fast and strong impact. Not only the Mang tribe, even the people of the Eight Limbs tribe came. A sense of despair rose in the hearts of everyone who was surrounded. But they didn't understand why the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe would unite to treat them so seriously. They had only stolen a few pieces of jade that were not of good quality, and they had only taken 2 strands of spider silk. Could it be that because of this, they had incurred the wrath of these 2 large tribes? When the curly-bearded man was escaping, he was also tied up by some thin threads. He roared, and the muscles covered by the black totem patterns on his body suddenly jumped, as if they were ready to attack. Another roar, like a volcano that had been accumulating power for a long time, suddenly erupted. The dense sound of the strings breaking sounded, and he actually broke free from these thin threads. Although there were some cuts on his body, it didn't affect him much. However, just when he broke free from the threads, he heard the slight sound of the wind being cut diagonally behind him. The curly-bearded man instinctively felt the danger, especially at his neck. He suddenly felt a chill. This sudden change shocked him. Obviously, the people who found them this time were not simple people from the Mang tribe. They wanted to completely encircle and annihilate them, and even kill them. They didn't mean to show mercy at all. A sharp bamboo knife that was 2 fingers wide and half an arm long appeared at the side of the curly-bearded man's neck. The bamboo knife appeared very fast, and the distance between the knife and the neck was also very short, as if it could cut this person's neck in the next moment, but it also gave people an illusion that there was plenty of time to escape. However, an illusion was an illusion after all. Puff! Blood splashed out. The curly-bearded man still maintained the expression of disbelief, like a rusty machine, and looked to the side sluggishly. There stood a person. The curly-bearded man opened his eyes wide, and carefully looked at the piece of jade hanging from the person's waist. That was a piece of jade with a slight green color. Why would such a person deal with his own group in person? Although this group of people had killed many people and cheated a few people from the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, for the sake of caution, after coming here, they absolutely didn't kill the people from these 2 tribes. However, today, the Mang tribe sent such a person to encircle and annihilate them in person. Generally speaking, such people shouldn't have put them in their eyes. With their arrogance, why would they need to do this? Until death, the curly-bearded man still couldn't figure out why he provoked the person wearing the jade. Bang! The curly-bearded man fell to the ground. The person wearing the jade shook off the few bloodstains on the bamboo knife, and didn't care about the remaining bloodstains on the bamboo knife, and looked around. Those who were encircled were either dead or dizzy. Not only the dead curly-bearded man, but also Xiaofan, who stood not far away and looked over there, didn't understand. The strength gap was too big. If they were in the Yinjiao tribe, only people like Tua and Kiki could solve it. Uncle Huang Yi, how is it? Chu Su asked. The person holding the bamboo knife and wearing the jade shook his head. It's not them. It's not them? Chu Su was confused. If it's not them, who else can it be? They are the only ones who have entered the forest. Several of my bamboo rats have been eaten by them. They don't have that ability yet. Huang Yi said. Because he was sure that it wasn't them, he didn't show any mercy and directly killed the people here instead of taking them back for interrogation. Then who else could it be? Chu Su thought, glancing at Xiaoxian next to him, and denied it in his heart. No, it's not this guy. Although this guy is strong, he can't sneak into the depths of the forest quietly to steal a few good pieces of jade. This matter had infuriated the leader so much that he had flipped out. Could it be? Chu Su suddenly thought of a name. Huang Yi sighed in a low voice, it may be a thief. Chu Su was a little frustrated. If it was a thief, it would not be so easy to catch him. Pack up and go back. Huang Yi called the others. Chapter 188. After saying a few words to the leader of the Eight Limbs tribe, Huang Yi turned his head and intended to say something to Chu Su. However, his sight fell on Xiaoxian, who was standing beside Chu Su, especially on Xiaoxian's animal skin clothes. His sight stayed on Xiaoxian for 2 more seconds, and he frowned discontentedly, thinking, how could Chu Su know people from such a small tribe? Thinking of this, Huang Yi glanced at Xiaoxian again. Except for his clothes, which were very small tribe style, he didn't see anything special about Xiaoxian. Seeing that Xiaoxian was still staring at the clothes of the totem warriors of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, Huang Yi was more sure that this was an ignorant person. Without giving Xiaoxian more sight, Huang Yi looked around and found nothing useful, so he left with his people. And the people of the Eight Limbs tribe didn't give Xiaoxian more than a glance, and they packed up and planned to leave. Little Su, let's go. The people of the Eight Limbs tribe said to the woman in white who was holding the white-haired spider. You go first, I have something else to do. Okay, then we'll go back first. After the people of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe left, there were only 3 people left, Xiaoxian, Chu Su and Su of the Eight Limbs tribe. Chu Su winked at Su, asking her to test Xiaoxian. Unfortunately, Su didn't move. She just stood there holding the spider with long white hair, quietly observing Xiaoxian's behavior. Seeing that Su didn't cooperate, Chu Su glared at her. Today, he took Xiaoxian here to let Xiaoxian see the powerful strength of the Mang tribe, especially today. The leader of the Mang tribe was a senior totem warrior. It was rare for a senior totem warrior of the Mang tribe to lead a team to encircle and suppress. For people of small tribes, they would be shocked once they saw it. But obviously, this guy didn't seem to have much reaction. Except for glancing at the clothes of the warriors of the 2 tribes, he didn't show any other expression. Was he shocked or not? Chu Su was not sure. Just as Chu Su was about to find a topic to test Xiaoxian, he saw Xiaoxian walk away. Sigh, we can't go there. There's a trap set by 8 of Limbs. Before Chu Su could finish his words, he saw that Xiaoxian had already walked into the area. He thought to himself, you won't listen to my advice again. You'll suffer later. However, after waiting for a while, there was still no movement from the other side. Chu Su was confused. He looked at Su, who was standing next to him, and nodded in the direction of Xiaoxian with his chin. He asked, didn't you set any traps over there? Su was also puzzled. She remembered that some of the traps set by the people of the tribe were activated when they encircled and annihilated those people, but there were still some that were not removed. They were all traps that were not lethal but could trap people. This was the style of the Eight Limbs tribe. The purpose was to warn some people who came here and let them remember the Eight Limbs tribe deeply and be deeply afraid of them. However, that guy had walked so far, but not a single trap was activated. Su, who was getting more and more confused, didn't notice that she had already plucked a handful of hair from the spider in her arms. Seeing Su like that, Chu Su didn't expect her to give a proper answer. He saw Xiaofan strolling in the woods, and guessed that when the people of the Eight Limbs tribe evacuated just now, they probably removed all the traps. Seeing Chu Su walk over there, Su opened her mouth, but said nothing in the end. "Sai, you're Xiaofan, right? Which tribe are you from?" "Ah." Chu Su walked over. Before he took 2 steps into the woods, one of his feet was tied and hung upside down on a tree, swaying. Chu Su took out his knife and cut off the thin wire that tied his feet. He landed on the ground, shook off the leaves on his body, and turned back to glare at Su, who was standing there silently. After a while, he looked at Xiaofan, who was standing in the woods. The traps were not removed. How could that guy be safe and sound? Luck? No, he couldn't be so lucky. According to the style of the Eight Limbs tribe, since they didn't remove all the traps, there must be a lot of hidden wires and snares waiting for the prey to come to their door. Even if there were only some small things left for the people of the Eight Limbs tribe, many people would still be trapped by those traps, just like Chu Su's own carelessness and got one of his feet tied just now. Chu Su didn't look down on Xiaofan now. Who on earth was this guy, who could kill 4 totem warriors so quickly and stroll in the traps of the Eight Limbs tribe? He had never seen the totem patterns on Xiaofan's body when he was fighting. This time, Chu Su didn't continue to walk inside. He just waited at the edge of the woods, watching Xiaofan stroll in there. Xiaofan was very interested in the traps of the Eight Limbs tribe. Although there were only some ordinary traps left, and the more technical ones were removed, Xiaofan could still see some of the key points and preferences of the people of the Eight Limbs tribe from those simple traps. Moreover, the wires used by the people of the Eight Limbs tribe should be spider silk, right? There were many kinds of spider silk. Although many of the traps had been removed, there were still many subtle traces left on the branches and leaves, which could be seen from those traces. When Xiaofan walked out of the woods again, Chu Su showed a smile that he thought was friendly. He pointed at himself and said to Xiaofan, "Mang Forest, Chu Su." The people of the Mang tribe like to call themselves Mang Forest XX. The Mang Forest referred to the wide woods of the Mang tribe. It was said that there were countless treasures in the Mang Forest, and the people who were born in the Mang Forest were also gifted. Their totem warriors of the same level were much stronger than those of other tribes. Of course, this was just what Xiaofan heard from the travelers of the Pu tribe. These rumors might have embellished the facts, so it shouldn't be so exaggerated. The warriors of the Yinjiao tribe were also stronger than some of the people of the Pu tribe and the Drumming tribe. This was what Xiaofan personally experienced. Anyway, since the people of the Mang tribe introduced him so formally, Xiaofan naturally replied formally. Putting several leaves picked from the woods into the animal skin bag, Xiaofan looked at Chu Su and answered, "Yinjiao, Xiaofan." "Yinjiao? Why does it sound so familiar?" Chu Su recalled. Not only Chu Su, but Su, who was standing next to him with the white spider in her arms, also felt familiar. Xiaofan looked up at the sky and said, "It's getting dark. I'll go back first." "Oh, okay." Chu Su, who was wondering why the word Yinjiao sounded so familiar, didn't say much. After Xiaofan left, he still stood there thinking. "Hey, Su, have you heard of the Yinjiao tribe before?" Chu Su asked. "I think I have, but it's been too long. I can't remember." Su touched the spider in her hand, thinking about when she had heard of this tribe. The two were silent, trying hard to recall when they had heard of this tribe. "Ah! I remember." Chu Su jumped up in surprise, and then said to himself, "How could it be? How could it be? What do you remember?" Su asked. That. Which? That tribe with strong limbs but no intelligence, violent, barbaric and unreasonable. Didn't you hear the story of Yanjiao when you were a child? Hearing Chu Su's words, Su was shocked. Didn't they say that the Yanjiao tribe was destroyed? Whether it was the Mang tribe or the Eight Limbs tribe, many children in the tribes were taught when they were very young. Those teachers would tell them some stories, some of which were true, some of which were embellished and blurred, and the story of the Yanjiao tribe was one of them. It was said that the Yanjiao tribe was one of the famous tribes in the central region at that time, which was at the same level as the Mang tribe, the Eight Limbs tribe and the Thousand Masks tribe. However, the tribe was very barbaric. The shamans in the tribe didn't know anything, and the leader was headstrong. The people in the tribe were all ignorant, arrogant and willful, except for their great strength. Finally, one day, the natural disaster came, and the shamans and the leader in the tribe listened to slanderous words. As a result, the tribe was divided and went on different paths. Later, the tribe was destroyed. Since then, there was one less strong person in the central region. Chu Su and Su were not the only two people who were indoctrinated in this way. Before this, they also thought so. But now, what was the matter with the person who called himself Xiaofan of the Flaming Horns? When that guy killed people, the totem patterns were very clear, and it didn't look like the destruction of the tribe at all. And his strength was at least at the level of intermediate totem warrior, not inferior to Chu Su, who had just entered the intermediate level. That barbaric and tough style was indeed what they had heard, but ignorant? Not necessarily. That brat had tricked all four of his robbers. The story, which was used as a negative example by the two tribes, seemed to be not what they thought. However, when they were young, when the teachers told the story of Yanjiao, they also sighed with emotion that if the Yanjiao tribe was still there, the situation in the central region would not be like it was now. Thinking of this, Chu Su didn't say more to Su. He had to go back quickly and tell everyone about it. By the way, he asked what the real Yanjiao tribe was like. Not to mention how smart they were, their strength was there, which could not be ignored. If Yanjiao was really still there, if Yanjiao came back, what should they do? After Chu Su left in a hurry, Su also hurried back to the tribe to tell others. Several senior leaders of the Mang tribe were still worried about whether there were robbers in the forest. When they were discussing, Chu Su ran over and told them about Xiaofan. Just now, they were dissatisfied with Chu Su's recklessness and wanted to scold him, but now their attention was diverted. Xiaofan of Yanjiao? Is it really that tribe? It's impossible. Didn't they say that the Yanjiao tribe was extinct? People suddenly started to talk about it. Although they were talking about it, they didn't have a definite impression and position. They didn't know what kind of tribe the Yanjiao tribe was, so they were just surprised. The chief on the seat called Chu Su over and asked him in detail. Then, he asked everyone to leave first. He and the shaman went to a solemn stone house, where some things left behind by the ancestors of the Mang tribe were stored. When they came to the place where the scrolls were stored, they opened the lid of a big bamboo box. Inside, there were some scrolls made of special bamboo. At the bottom of the bamboo box, there were scrolls that had not been opened for hundreds of years. The shaman of the Mang tribe took out one of the scrolls in the corner of the bottom floor. Because it had been there for a long time, even the special bamboo and animal skin would inevitably change color, showing a sense of age. When he opened the scroll, what came into view was a picture of two horns wrapped in flames. The Yanjiao tribe, the next day, when the Mang tribe sent people to the cave to look for them, they found that the traveling team had left early in the morning. Chapter 189. The traveling team continued on their planned route. After leaving the area of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, the traveling tribe traveled for another 6 days. They passed through some small markets or some medium-sized tribes in the central region and exchanged some things. Xiaofan marked all the places they passed through on the map he drew, and even marked the characteristics of each tribe. Because they were in a hurry, they didn't exchange too many things. Xiaofan only exchanged for some tribal symbols or small souvenirs, and hurried on with their journey. Of course, the traveling team also encountered some wild beasts and even ferocious beasts when they passed through some wild mountains and ridges. However, there were relatively fewer ferocious beasts, and most of them were wild beasts. The traveling team pointed to the map and told Xiaofan that most of the ferocious beasts were in this direction on the map, and that direction was exactly where Xiaofan planned to go to the old haunt of the Yanjiao tribe. It was said that there were very few human tribes living there. It was also a vast mountainous area where ferocious beasts often appeared, and there were all kinds of unimaginable dangers. It was a place that no traveling team was willing to go to. Xiaofan wanted to go there and have a look. Since they were on a trip, they naturally had to go to the old haunt of the Yanjiao tribe to see what secrets were hidden in the old haunt of the Yanjiao ancestors, and what the root old he talked about was. Since they were not going the same way, Xiaofan naturally had to separate from the traveling tribe. Are you really going to leave the team? It's very dangerous to be alone. You persuaded Xiaofan after hearing that he was going to leave. It's rare for me to go out of the tribe, so I want to look around. When I'm done, I'll follow the route to find you. Xiaofan said. Along the way, Xiaofan had drawn part of the map of the central region according to what he knew. Although there were still many places that the traveling team hadn't been to, and the animal skin roll was still empty, Xiaofan was not in a hurry, and could finish it slowly. After bidding farewell to the traveling team, Xiaofan headed in the direction of the old Yanjiao tribe that old he had mentioned. This time, he was alone. Sometimes, he would ask Cha-Cha to bring him along when they encountered places with complicated terrain. One day later, Xiaofan looked at the map in his hand. According to the map, this area was the territory of the Lu tribe. Usually, when approaching the territory of a tribe, Xiaofan would ask the Cha-Cha to be more careful. These tribes were very guarded. To get to the old haunt, they had to go around the Lu tribe. Cha-Cha, who was still in the air, let out a cry that indicated that there were people nearby. Xiaofan also heard the commotion. Those people seemed to be deliberately restraining their auras and did not speak loudly. They were all silent. They should be from the Lu tribe, but Xiaofan didn't know why they were so careful. No matter what, Xiaofan had to be more vigilant. Rustle, some sounds of branches and leaves rubbing against each other rang out. There were also the sounds of rapid approaching footsteps. It didn't seem to be made by humans. Xiaofan jumped onto a tree, intending to take a look from above. Although the traveling team had told Xiaofan that the Lu tribe was not a big threat, Xiaofan still had to be cautious. If the other party's attitude was not good, he would directly ask the Cha-Cha in the air to come to his aid. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, the footsteps got closer and faster. Xiaofan couldn't see the other party's face clearly, but from the movements of the branches, he could tell that it was a tall guy. As the footsteps got closer, Xiaofan hid behind the dense branches and looked out through the gaps between the leaves. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta, when the other party passed by the tree Xiaofan was hiding in like the wind, he paused and then turned back. Xiaofan held the hilt of his knife, wondering if the other party had discovered him. The surrounding trees were not tall, and the one Xiaofan chose was more suitable for hiding. As he was thinking, Xiaofan saw the branches below being pulled apart. He lowered his head and saw a big bird's head. The bird was holding a fruit in its beak. The fruit was from this tree. Obviously, this bird only found the fruit, not Xiaofan. But it didn't expect that when it pulled the branch, it would see the person hiding inside. Just like that, a man and a bird met. Xiaofan was hiding at least 5 meters above the ground, but this bird's head was less than a meter away from Xiaofan. This showed how tall this bird was. With Guang's forest raccoons in front of him, Xiaofan was wary of such a big bird. After the branches below were pulled apart, Xiaofan held the stone knife and was about to slash at it. However, before Xiaofan could do anything, the bird let out a shrill squawk. Ignoring the fruit crumbs in its mouth, it turned around and ran away with its big feet. Xiaofan. What a waste of such a big bird. If it was Guang's forest raccoons that used its head like a hoe, it would probably peck at Xiaofan, right? However, this bird was even more surprised than Xiaofan. It was like a little white rabbit meeting a big bad wolf, running away in panic and fear. Xiaofan pushed aside the branches and looked at the bird that ran away like the wind. It was the same as Guang's forest raccoons. Its upper limbs had degenerated and it could not fly. Moreover, its body looked fatter than Guang's forest raccoons. Its lower limbs were slightly thicker, and very fleshy. Whoosh, the shadow in the sky swept down, caught the big bird that had not run far, and then flew up again. After Cha-Cha caught the big bird, a team of 7 people rushed out of the woods. They did not notice Xiaofan at first. They just stared at the sky and shouted. One of them even threw the spear in his hand, but Cha-Cha flew too fast and curved, so the spear missed a lot. It's caught. Where did this eagle come from? I've never seen this eagle before. Several people shouted over there. Then, they noticed Xiaofan standing next to them. Who are you? One of them asked suspiciously. I'm just passing by. Well, that's my eagle up there. Xiaofan saw that although the other party looked unhappy, they did not intend to continue throwing spears. He whistled and made a gesture towards the sky. The travelers had said that the Lu tribe had a special status in the central region, and the people of the Lu tribe should be friendly with each other. Cha-Cha caught the struggling bird and circled in the sky before landing. The other party was worried that Cha-Cha would directly throw the big bird down from the sky. However, Cha-Cha only threw the big bird in front of Xiaofan when it was close to the ground. Then, it quickly flew up. It did not like the people who threw spears at it. The big bird was put on the ground. There were some claw marks on its body and it was a little frightened, so it did not recover for a while. After panting for a while, it planned to continue escaping. Unfortunately, the other party had already tied it up with straw ropes. Are you really just passing by? The leader asked. This time, his attitude was a little better. Yes. I was just resting here when that big bird ran over, Xiaofan said. I'm sorry. I thought that eagle was going to take away our bird. The leader laughed. He had an impression of every eagle that came to their tribe to steal food, but the one he saw just now was indeed very unfamiliar. Moreover, domesticated eagles were different from wild eagles. Just now, he saw that eagle had drawings on its claws. He did not see clearly, but he guessed that they were totem patterns. The Lu tribe generally did not want to make enemies with others. Therefore, even if they were not close to many tribes, they would not offend them either. This young man in front of him could raise such a big eagle, so his tribe should be relatively large. Lu tribe, Yanjiao. The man introduced himself. Yanjiao tribe, Xiaofan. Yanjiao tribe? They looked at each other. It seemed that this was the first time they had heard of it. Was it very far from here? Did you come here with the traveling team? One of them asked. Yes, I just parted with them. Sure enough, he came from a far place. They thought. Looking at the eagle in the sky, Yanjiao said to Xiaofan, Xiaofan, can you do us a favor? Yes, please. Yanjiao explained briefly. It turned out that every once in a while, the Lu tribe would transport some of their animals out to trade with people from other tribes. Then they would come back. However, there was an accident early in the morning. The fence was damaged, but it was not repaired in time. A big bird rushed out, and then many more birds ran away. The patrolman intercepted some, but missed many. They sent out 5 teams to search in 5 directions. Until now, they had not found all the animals. So, I want you to ask your eagle to help us find them. Yan Jiu said. Okay. This was not a difficult task. Xiaofan called Cha-Cha down and said a few words, then let it fly away. The people who had been busy all morning finally had a chance to rest. 3 of them directly sat down on the ground, thinking that if the eagle could not find them later, they would have to continue. Hey, it's coming. One of them, who was staring at the sky, said excitedly. They had only seen eagles in the sky take away their livestock before. This was the first time that they had encountered an eagle helping to bring back their livestock. This was only the first one. After about 10 minutes, the second one was found. After the second one, Cha-Cha did not bring back any more big birds. There should be no more birds around here. Let's go back and see if the others have found any. Yan Jiu said. At the same time, in order to thank Xiaofan, Yan Jiu also invited Xiaofan to join them. During the chat just now, Xiaofan showed his interest in raising big birds. This was also something that the Lu tribe was very proud of. They liked to let people see the results of their breeding, so that they could trade with more people in the future. Come with us. We have the largest breeding farm in the central region. Many tribes have traded with us. Yan Jiu brought Xiaofan into the tribe. When he talked about breeding, his tone was full of pride. Xiaofan, however, looked at the scene in front of him in surprise. They stood on the hill and looked at the lower ground. There were hundreds of birds as big as the previous one. Although they looked similar in size to the forest raccoons, they were more docile and only ate vegetables. In Xiaofan's eyes, they were simply lumps of meat. Chapter 190. Around the wide farm, huge tree trunks and stone pillars formed high fences. Around the fences, there were guards at intervals. Probably because of the accident that happened today, the number of guards increased. In some of the fences, the birds were driven away, and some people were repairing them. Those big, fat, and timid birds were stretching their necks and looking around. Occasionally, some people would throw in some fruits and unknown grains, which would cause a commotion in the fences. The big birds would rush to peck at the food on the ground. After eating, they would sleep in the sun. Xiaofan also saw some people carrying out eggs about half a meter high from some haystacks. In comparison, the eggs that hatched Cha-Cha were so weak. Anyone who saw Cha-Cha now would find it hard to imagine that Cha-Cha came out of such a small egg. The people of the Lu tribe called those big birds meat birds. They were domesticated from moas. After generations of domestication, these meat birds gradually lost their wild nature and became docile and timid. However, they looked fat and had short and thick legs. Xiaofan didn't expect these birds to run so fast. At least, they ran more gracefully than they looked. In addition to those meat birds, Yan Jiu also took Xiaofan to see other animal pens, such as cows, horses, and sheep. The scale of these pens was not as big as the one in the Feng tribe, but with such rich breeding species and techniques, the people of the Lu tribe would not lack food. How is it? How are the animals in our tribe? Yan Jiu asked Xiaofan with a proud face. Very good. Xiaofan answered honestly. Xiaofan had seen many tribes along the way, and they all knew how to breed animals. However, none of them could compare to the Lu tribe. Because of this, the Lu tribe was able to establish a foothold in the central region and maintain a good relationship with many other tribes. It was said that several large tribes in the central region had friendly relations with the Lu tribe. If the Lu tribe was in danger, they would even send people to help. No one knew whether this was true or not. Just like what Xiaofan knew, this was not an aggressive tribe. They could even be considered as the good guys in the central region. Of course, the good guys were not without temper. To be able to gain a foothold in the central region, their own strength was indispensable. Are those also raised by you for food? Xiaofan pointed to a breeding area where giant cows were grazing. There weren't many of them, but they were obviously much larger than the surrounding cows, sheep, and horses. They were very conspicuous. No, those are not all for eating and trading. Most of the time, we use them to pull carriages, Yanjiu said. Pull a cart? That's right. Look over there. We are preparing the meat bird this time. If it weren't for the unforeseen event, we would have already set off and be on our way. Speaking of this, Yanjiu's smile faded a little. How could such a thing happen in the animal pen? Did no one discover the breach? Even the guards couldn't stop it. Yanjiu didn't believe it. He felt that someone must have deliberately destroyed it. However, he wouldn't tell Xiaofan about this. This was an internal matter that they were investigating. It wasn't something to be proud of. To outsiders, they would only say it was an accident. Xiaofan saw an ox cart here for the first time. It was a very large ox cart. Even if he didn't see the cart, he could tell the size of the cart just by looking at the deep tracks left on the ground. There were some damaged stone spinning wheels or pottery spinning wheels and other wheel-shaped apparatuses. The stone spinning wheels were specially made and the stone material was relatively hard. There were more pottery spinning wheels, from some small model-like ones to those half the height of a person. There were all kinds of them, and there were even paintings on them. Some of these wheels were used to twist and spin thread. Some were used as wheels to transport food to the animals. Some were also used as wheels to transport heavier goods. The distance between two roughly parallel tracks was more than 4 meters. If they walked a little further, they could hear people talking. They could see people carrying meat birds. Those meat birds had been tied up and couldn't escape. They were carried onto large wooden carts and piled up into a small hill. Yanjiu caught a soldier who was carrying meat birds and asked, "Have you found all the escaped meat birds?" The soldier wiped the sweat on his forehead and sighed, "Those who went out to search have all come back. Up until now, almost all the ones that ran out have been found. Only one escaped. Only one. That's good enough." Yanjiu sighed. He looked around and asked again, "By the way, how's the cargo moving?" "It's almost done. We can leave in the afternoon." "Okay, you continue." Yanjiu didn't say much to the others. In order to thank Xiaofan for his help today, he treated Xiaofan to a sumptuous lunch at noon. He also gave Xiaofan a meat bird and a meat bird egg. The meat bird Xiaofan gave Cha-Cha an extra meal. Giving Xiaofan something was not just to thank him. Yanjiu also had his own thoughts. Although they had never heard of the Yanjiao tribe, this tribe was not necessarily weak. Maybe they would have contacts in the future, so it would be good to make friends with them. Knowing that Xiaofan had left the tribe for a long journey, Yanjiu didn't ask for details. Many people from other tribes would travel around, especially those from other small tribes on the periphery. They would be brought to the central region by their elders to gain experience. However, few people like Xiaofan would travel alone. Xiaofan didn't say where he was going. He just pointed to some places near the old haunt of the Yanjiao tribe. "Our transport team will pass by there. You can go with us. It's safer that way. Besides, the Wanshi tribe is there. People in their tribe have bad tempers." Yanjiu said. People from the Lu tribe who could be called bad-tempered naturally wouldn't have bad tempers. Inviting people to ride with them was one of the Lu tribe's ways to show their friendliness. Xiaofan didn't refuse. After thanking them, he helped them carry the tied-up meat birds. Observing these meat birds from a close distance, Xiaofan found that after they were tied up, they would only cry once or twice. Most of the time, they were sleeping. There was no sense of danger at all. Most of the people of the Lu tribe carried one bird with 2 people, but Xiaoxian could carry 2 birds with no problem. Xiaoxian, people in your tribe are really strong. Yan Jiu couldn't help but say. Yes, people in our tribe don't have good tempers, but they are strong. Xiaoxian threw the 2 meat birds onto the wooden cart and answered. Yan Jiu didn't take Xiaoxian's words seriously. He only thought that Xiaoxian was joking. After all, he didn't think Xiaoxian was a violent person. Naturally, he also thought that people in the Yanjiao tribe were all like that. However, he believed Xiaoxian's words about people in the Yanjiao tribe being strong. Your tribe is very similar to the Wuxia tribe. You are both strong, but your tribe is definitely better than the Wuxia tribe. Yan Jiu said. The Wuxia tribe was said to not have been one of the big tribes in the central region. Later, it developed and became famous. However, some old strong people didn't seem to care about the Wuxia tribe. When the goods were almost loaded, the leader called everyone to get ready to set off. Yan Jiu was also one of the members of the transport team. More than 10 bullock carts were lined up in a straight line. The giant cows had already been fed and were ready to work. Come on, Xiaoxian, get on my cart. Yan Jiu jumped on one of the carts and shouted to Xiaoxian. Xiaoxian walked over and jumped on the cart that was taller than him. The wheels of this kind of bullock cart were huge stone wheels. They were round and slightly thick. Probably for cushioning, the stone wheels were tied with circles of grass vines. In order to pile more meat birds, there was no carriage or roof on the cart. It was just an open-air wooden cart. Fortunately, the thick planks were strong enough. Otherwise, they would collapse with a little pull. After the leader of the transport team finished cleaning up, he shouted, "Let's go." The sound of the stone wheels rolling on the ground and the creaking of the planks, mixed with the cries of the meat birds, rang out as the cart set off. This was a very novel experience for Xiaoxian. Sitting on the wooden cart, with his knees hanging down, Xiaoxian listened to the gossip of some tribes in the central region. For example, which tribe had a war, which tribe's people were beaten up, which tribe found some treasures, which tribe's chief or shaman changed, and so on. In the afternoon, Yangguang was still very hot. Probably because it was the end of the year, the temperature was not very high. Xiaoxian listened to the people of the Lu tribe all the way. Occasionally, he asked a few questions to learn about the situation nearby and to perfect the map. As they got closer and closer to the old land, Xiaoxian didn't hear anything about the Yanjiao tribe. No one mentioned the Yanjiao tribe. Instead, they talked about the Wuxia tribe, which was said to be very strong and bad-tempered. Next to the old land of the Yanjiao tribe, a new strong tribe, the Wuxia tribe, rose up and occupied a new territory. According to the words of the people of the Lu tribe, in the eyes of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe with a long history, the Wuxia tribe was the second Yanjiao tribe. And the Yanjiao tribe, which used to be glorious in the central region, had long been forgotten. While they were talking, Xiaoxian heard a long and sonorous elephant trumpet in front of them. Looking up, at the intersection of the flat ground and the sky, a black shadow was wriggling. Because of the movement there, the place where the sky and the sky met became blurred. The Wuxia tribe. It's the people of the Wuxia tribe. The people in the carts were not in the mood to chat anymore. They looked nervous, and some people had already taken out their weapons. The Lu tribe had a good relationship with many tribes. In the central region, many tribes would not attack this nice guy, because he was not a big threat. Even if they wanted to fight for territory, they would not attack the Lu tribe. And the Wuxia tribe was not one of them. Yan Jiu had said that the people of the Wuxia tribe were bad-tempered, and conflicts between the two tribes often happened. Look at them. Are they going to fight with other tribes again? A man in the cart said. They should be. Look at their mammoths, carrying so many things on their backs. Another man said with disgust, if they are strong enough, why don't they hunt the ferocious beasts in the forest? They always rob other tribes. The Wuxia tribe was close to the forest where there were many ferocious beasts. However, they seldom went there to hunt. Every time they had enough food, they would go to other tribes to rob them. They only robbed those tribes that were weaker than them. As for the powerhouses of the big tribes, they would not provoke them. I heard that there was a big tribe in the forest with ferocious beasts a long time ago, but it died out. When will the Wuxia tribe die out? A man whispered. Stop talking. Take care of the things. Yanjiu whispered to several people in the carts. Got it. The others in the carts answered. Xiaofan, you should also be careful. Although the Wuxia tribe may not really fight with us, it's always good to be on guard. Yanjiu looked at Xiaofan. Yes, I will. Xiaofan looked at the approaching figures. Because people had been walking here for a long time, it formed a dirt road without grass. The huge mammoths stepped on the road, shaking the dust on the ground. Hundreds of people, plus a dozen mammoths bigger than the giant oxen pulling the carts, together with the dust raised, looked a bit murderous. There were so many of them that in order to avoid conflict, the leader of the Lu tribe took the initiative to ask everyone to move aside and give way to the main road. The other side didn't mean to be modest. Compared with before, the mammoths sped up a lot. If the Lu tribe didn't move aside, they would probably hit them directly. There were several people sitting on each mammoth. In addition to some looted materials on the back of the mammoths, there were young women tied up. Looking at their embarrassed appearance and clothes, they were not people of the Wuxia tribe. They were robbed and were one of the trophies. In fact, not only the Wuxia tribe, but also many wars between tribes were like this. Some of the captives were killed, some were sold to the slave owners, and some young women were taken back as trophies. The leading mammoth had long tusks, and there were some decorations with blood stains on its body. Some were carved from bones, some were made of stone and some were made of wood. The man sitting on the head of the elephant was wearing a head ornament like a ghost face carved from ivory. His hair looked very hard. The short ones stood up like steel needles, and the long ones were simply tied with bone ornaments. This man was tall and strong. His exposed strong muscles seemed to contain explosive power. His eyes showed undisguised fierceness and arrogance. This man was the leader of this team of the Wuxia tribe. When he glanced at the team of the Lu tribe, his eyes were full of greed. He looked at the Lu tribe as if they were meat. But, thinking of the warning he received not long ago, he still restrained his desire to pull out his sword and rob them. Not only this leader, but those people of the Wuxia tribe walking on the ground also coveted the goods on the Lu tribe's carts. They looked at the leader from time to time, waiting for his order to take action. The people of the Lu tribe were all tense. They didn't expect to meet the team of the Wuxia tribe today. But they wouldn't flinch, let alone give away the goods. The leader of the Wuxia tribe ignored the eyes of his subordinates. He just glanced at the team of the Lu tribe. His eyes flashed past Xiaofan and didn't stay for long. But every time he looked at the meat birds on the carts, he paused for a moment. With a gloomy face, he whipped the mammoth and shouted, "Hurry up!" The mammoth cried out in pain and sped up its pace. The dust around them rose higher. The wind just blew the dust towards the team of the Lu tribe. The Lu tribe was so angry that they choked several times, but they didn't take any action. They were outnumbered, and the other side was not easy to deal with. They had to endure what they had to endure. They hated the Wuxia tribe even more. When the other side's long whip was lashed out, it almost brushed against the giant ox pulling the carts of the Lu tribe. If the warrior of the Lu tribe hadn't blocked it with his sword, the whip would have hit the ox. When many people of the Wuxia tribe passed by, they bared their teeth at the carts and waved their swords and spears. It seemed that they were saying, "Sooner or later, I will rob all your things." When all the people of the Wuxia tribe passed by and went far away and the dust dispersed, the people of the Lu tribe relaxed. The cart set off again. Xiaofan looked at those figures far away and thought, is this the second Yanjiao tribe in the central region? They are nothing. Chapter 191. Seeing the Wuxia tribe, the people of the Lu tribe, who had been talking excitedly, quieted down. Xiaofan didn't say goodbye to the Lu tribe's caravan until they had traveled some distance. Here, Yanjiao's caravan was heading away from the ferocious beast mountain forest, while Xiaofan was heading there. It's not far from the Wuxia tribe. You can follow us a little further. Yanjiao suggested. No, you don't have to worry. Xiaofan pointed to the sky above. Seeing the eagle hovering in the sky, Yanjiao remembered that Xiaofan could use the eagle. After all, they had never heard that the Wuxia tribe had domesticated eagles, so the sky was safer. Anyway, be careful of the Wuxia tribe. Yanjiao said. Okay, thank you. Oh, right. Xiaofan took out a stone card, which was the one the shaman gave him, with the totem of the Yanjiao tribe painted on it. Showing the stone card to the people of the Lu tribe, Xiaofan said, "This is the totem of our tribe. Maybe many people don't know it now, but I believe that soon, everyone will remember it." The people in the car looked at the totem on the stone card, but didn't notice that Xiaofan said everyone will remember it. They were sure that they had never seen or heard of this totem, but in order to show their friendliness, and for the sake of Xiaofan's help, they still looked at it, thinking that they probably wouldn't see it again. Noticing the expressions of the people in the car, Xiaofan didn't say much, just smiled, and then put away the stone card. He said goodbye to the people of the Lu tribe, made a gesture to the sky, and jumped on Cha-Cha's back after it landed. Goodbye. Waving to Yanjiao and the others, Xiaofan patted Cha-Cha's head, let's go. Looking at the figure flying away in the sky, the people in the car looked away. Do you think we'll see Xiaofan again in the future? Someone asked. I think the people of the Yanjiao tribe should be good, at least much better than the people of the Wuxia tribe. If the Yanjiao tribe is not too far away, we can go to their tribe. What a pity, they were talking about Xiaofan and the Yanjiao tribe. After a while, they realized that Yanjiao hadn't said anything, so someone asked, Yanjiao, tell us what you think. Yanjiao came back to his senses and looked at the others in the car. What do I think? Yanjiao pointed at the direction where Cha-Cha was flying and said, don't you think there's something wrong with that direction? That direction? Ah. Just now, he only thought about the Flaming Horns tribe and their tribe's totem that Xiaofan had mentioned several times. Now that he thought about it, he found that the direction Cha-Cha was flying in was the direction of the Wuxia tribe and the ferocious beasts mountain forest. Why would he go there? Did he go in the wrong direction? Will we see him again in the future? Someone asked worriedly. The ferocious beasts forest was the only vast and dangerous place that directly bordered the central area. In other directions, after going out of the central area, there were many small tribes in the peripheral area. Only this area was recognized as a dangerous place. Even the people of the Wuxia tribe rarely went inside. Everyone who entered the forest was traveling with others in groups. Even so, there were still many people who lost their lives in the forest. No one wanted to live there. It was said that the ferocious beasts forest used to be a little far from here, but later it expanded towards the central area. Alas! Yanjiao sighed, shook his head and stopped talking. On the other side, Xiaofan sat on Cha-Cha's back, looking down at the ground. He saw the team of the Wuxia tribe that he had met before. After flying for a while, he saw the dwelling place of the Wuxia tribe. Compared with the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, the style of the Wuxia tribe was more primitive and barbaric. But these people loved to decorate, so bone ornaments and stone ornaments were hung everywhere in the house. There were many people moving around in the tribe, and there were also some livestock. But they didn't seem to be farmed, but more like they were robbed from other places and then kept in captivity. They didn't expect to grow up, but just kept temporarily. When they wanted to eat, they would directly kill them. Moreover, winter seemed to be coming. But he didn't know whether it would snow here in winter. Xiaofan thought. He didn't know what had happened in the Wuxia tribe. Many teams were running around, as if they were looking for something. Xiaofan didn't intend to communicate with them for the time being. What he wanted to do most now was to see the old place of the Yanjiao tribe that he had mentioned. The totem flame in his mind had begun to surge. The closer he got to the place, the more violent and active it became, as if there was something there that was attracting it. Although the Wuxia tribe didn't domesticate flying beasts, if they flew over the tribe at a low altitude, they would definitely be attacked intensively. Cha-Cha flew over the Wuxia tribe from high up in the sky. When it flew, it excreted some excrement and cried out happily. Below, the teams of the Wuxia tribe, who were running around looking for someone, heard the eagle's cry. They looked up and took out bows and spears to guard against it. Sometimes some birds would run out of the forest and take away their food, and sometimes people. So, when they heard the eagle cry, they looked at the eagle in the sky vigilantly. They just waited for the eagle to fly lower and then attacked. But after waiting for a while, the eagle didn't fly lower, but some bird excrement. Bird excrement fell on their heads, on their houses, and in the animal pens where the food was kept. Those who couldn't avoid it wiped the bird excrement on their heads and shouted loudly, but they couldn't hurt the initiator at all. The animals in the animal pens became restless because of the bird excrement. They ran around, afraid that the eagle in the sky would take them away. In their vague memories, some of their kind seemed to have been caught by this kind of bird that fell from the sky. Driven by the sense of crisis, these animals, who were not well cared for, became anxious. They hit the fence more fiercely. If they couldn't hit the fence, they hit other animals around them. Anyway, many of them were not of the same kind. A sheep with its horns cut off was being chased around by a cow. It was running and screaming. An old cow that was grazing on grass was kicked by a horse behind it. It fell directly into a haystack. It got up and started a fight with the horse angrily. The people of the Wuxia tribe outside had to send people to suppress the disturbance in the animal pens. Cha-Cha didn't know that the bird excrement it took along the way had caused a disturbance in the Wuxia tribe. After having a good time, it carried Xiaofan and flew in the direction pointed by Xiaofan. Compared with the place where people were active, the forest in front of it made it feel more comfortable. When it flew into the forest, the noise of the human tribes disappeared. There were more and more birds in the sky. If Xiaofan was on Cha-Cha's back, Cha-Cha's flexibility would be limited, and Xiaofan's strength could not be exerted. Therefore, he let Cha-Cha put him down and sneaked in the forest. He took the opportunity to have a good look at this strange yet familiar place. The human civilization he had seen before was gradually fading away. Here, everything returned to the most primitive state. There were no houses, no caravans, no finely woven clothes. The cruel rules of nature played out again. Xiaofan stood on a high tree, looking at the forest in front of him, and took a deep breath. Just by taking a breath, he could smell the restlessness and danger in the air. However, he was not afraid at all. On the contrary, a long-lost excitement grew stronger. Jumping down from the tree and walking through the forest, Xiaofan did not need a transition period. Almost as soon as he stepped into the forest, Xiaofan had already adjusted himself to the best state. If Chu Su of the Mang tribe and Su of the Eight Limbs tribe saw Xiaofan now, they would find it hard to believe. After all, what left a deep impression on them was Xiaofan's undisguised barbaric and violent style. But now, it was completely different. Nimble, swift, and hidden, like those ferocious beasts that were good at surprise attacks, cunning and dangerous. There was no extra breath exposed, as if he had already blended into the forest. There were many wild beasts and ferocious beasts in the forest. There were several times when Xiaofan brushed past those ferocious beasts. Here, he was alone. When there was no hunting, he did not want to provoke those ferocious predators. He had to save his strength to find his target. Every bit of strength was used in the right place. To survive in the forest, one had to use the least amount of strength to get the best result, and save the rest to save one's life. A vine quietly approached Xiaofan from behind. Even the rustling sound of friction could not be heard. When it approached Xiaofan, a bud-like thing at the top of the vine suddenly opened, like a big mouth with sharp teeth, and bit at Xiaofan's leg. With a flash of the knife, the big mouth at the top of the vine was cut off. Some dark green juice flowed out of the cut, and then the vine quickly shrank back. Xiaofan did not pay much attention to the vine. He had seen many plants like this in the hunting ground before. He was almost there. Xiaofan already felt the totem flame in his mind becoming excited. A huge rock attracted Xiaofan's attention. The huge rock stood there, and it did not seem to fit in with the surrounding environment. The huge rock was covered with thick moss and all kinds of rotten leaves. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to tell that it was a rock. After checking the surroundings and finding no dangerous objects, Xiaofan approached it carefully, and scraped off the thick layer of moss with his stone knife. There were some deep dents on the surface of the rock. He scraped off a large piece of moss, and did a simple cleaning, so that the dents on the rock could be seen more clearly. On the surface of the huge rock, there were some paintings, a very Yanjiao-style flame double horns pattern, and some words. Probably for some reason, some parts of the rock were worn down, and many dents could not be connected. Only the two biggest words were Yanjiao, and the other smaller words were hard to recognize. Yanjiao, after removing the thick layer of moss and rotten materials, finally saw the light of day again. Just like the rock paintings of the Eight Limbs tribe, these huge rocks also served as boundary markers, telling everyone who came here that this was the territory of the Yanjiao tribe. Besides that huge rock, Xiaofan found several other similar huge rocks, of different sizes, and with different degrees of wear. Some looked like they had been cut in half, while others were mostly buried in the ground. He said that the roots of the Yanjiao tribe were still here. Before coming here, Xiaofan did not know, nor could he feel. But now, as soon as he stepped into this area, Xiaofan felt that there was a kind of attraction there, attracting him. It was the first time that Xiaofan came here, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Xiaofan understood that it was because of the fire seed and the totem. Following the attraction, Xiaofan quickly approached that area, and in the process, Xiaofan also found a phenomenon. It seemed that the closer he got to the central area, the fewer ferocious beasts he saw. Perhaps, as he said, the roots of the Yanjiao tribe were still here. So, just like the fire seed deterred wild beasts and ferocious beasts, it also had a certain effect here, but it was not as obvious as the fire seed. Without more ferocious beasts to disturb him, Xiaofan moved forward a little faster. The closer he went, the more traces of the tribe Xiaofan could find. For example, houses, some towering stone pillars, etc. Because too many years had passed, some of them had lost their original shape, and with the change of the terrain, they were seriously damaged. There were no people, and ferocious beasts rarely came here, so this place was almost covered by all kinds of plants. But compared to those in the forest, the plants here were a little better. They were not too luxuriant, at least they would not be completely covered by the plants. The collapsed houses had long become the habitat of plants and microorganisms. Xiaofan had to scrape off a layer to see the real traces below. The wooden things had long decayed, leaving behind only some stone. In some places, the remains of some pottery could be dug out. Xiaofan walked in this place, no longer scraping and digging. He just looked at this area that had been uninhabited for nearly 1,000 years. Some stone houses had collapsed on the ground, while others were half on the ground and half in the water. A stream flowed by, washing away the stones that looked like tiles. Without the tall trees to block it, the tall and thick stone pillar was very conspicuous. However, the stone pillar had been covered by green vines. Xiaofan spent some effort to pull off all the vines, and he had to be careful not to damage the stone pillar. After the vines were pulled off, the carvings on the stone pillar were also revealed. Compared to the boundary steely-like boulders he had seen before, the carvings on this stone pillar were better preserved and clearer. There were patterns of the flaming horns, some written records, and some drawings that Xiaofan could not understand. Was this used for sundials? Or for sacrifice? Probably for sundials. Xiaofan thought that the sacrifice was usually near the fire pit, and the place where the fire pit was should be the place Xiaofan was looking for. The sun gradually set, and the afterglow shone on the ruins, adding a sense of desolation to the history. Xiaofan stood on the tall stone pillar and looked into the distance. Under the red sky in the distance, there were undulating mountains and woodlands. No matter how glorious it had been, now it was just a remnant of overgrown weeds. With a long sigh, Xiaofan came down from the stone pillar and walked towards a place. There was nothing special about that place. It was slightly flat, and there were some plants that were not tall growing on it. Little flowers were scattered among them. After walking around the place, he came to the center and stopped. Xiaofan squatted down and put his hands on the ground. He felt that there seemed to be something moving and flowing below. Chapter 192. The sun was setting on the other side of the distant mountain, and the light in the forest was gradually fading. The surroundings had become much darker. At the moment, Xiaofan did not pay attention to the passage of time, nor did he pay attention to whether there was any danger around. He had a feeling that this place was safe. There would be no sneak attacks from those dangerous plants, nor would there be any ferocious predators. All his attention was on the ground under his palms. He felt a little warmth coming from below, along with his palms, along his arms, and all the way up to the totem in his mind. It stimulated the flames on the totem to roll unceasingly. The evening wind blew, and there was something different in the wind than usual. The surroundings began to quiet down. The original sounds of birds, insects, beasts in the forest, the sound of the stream, and so on all gradually faded away. Whoosh, whoosh, it was like the sound of flames jumping in the wind. But there was not a single spark in the surroundings. Even because the sun had set and night had fallen, the unrecognizable ruins had been shrouded in darkness. Xiaofan kept staring at his palms on the ground, not moving at all. He felt that the ground under his palms was getting warmer and warmer, as if something was spreading underground and was about to break out of the earth. A little flame seeped through the gaps between his fingers, especially conspicuous in the already dark night. Soon, more flames appeared under Xiaofan's palms, and from the small spark at the beginning, they grew bigger and bigger. Xiaofan's palms could not cover them. After the flames under his palms grew bigger, they divided into 6 branches and gradually spread in 6 directions. There were no rising flames, but like magma, they spread in each direction until they reached the forest, where Xiaofan could not see. Withdrawing his hands and standing up, Xiaofan looked at the 6 branches extending from the same point. Was this the root of the Yanjiao tribe that Old He's ancestors had mentioned? Was the center point where the 6 branches converged where the original fire seed was? While thinking, Xiaofan suddenly felt that something was wrong. He seemed to have fallen into an uncontrollable but special state again. Looking at the ground under his feet, which should have been full of flowers and soil, it had turned into stones. The size and placement of these stones were very familiar, as if he was standing in the fire pit of the Yanjiao tribe. Fire pit? Xiaofan looked up at other places. The original ruins were gone, replaced by vague images of people standing not far away. Behind the crowd were stone houses that were much taller than people. Just like the murals in the cave at the foot of the Yanjiao tribe. Compared with most tribal houses, these stone houses were much bigger, taller, and much more magnificent. There were also some carved stone statues of people and beasts, some of which were warriors killing ferocious beasts. Closer to the fire pit, there were some people standing in an arrangement similar to what Xiaofan saw with his own eyes during the sacrificial ceremony in the tribe. There were also warriors performing the sacrificial dance, and there were also the erected pillars and offerings. The difference was that there were 6 people standing closer to the fire pit. Xiaofan could not see their specific appearances, only vague figures. Their decorations were more gorgeous than the warriors performing the sacrificial dance, and the ornaments hanging from their heads and bodies were more complicated. A figure stepped into the fire pit and walked towards Xiaofan. Xiaofan knew that this person was not really for himself. This person's purpose should be the fire seed where he was. And this person should be one of the shamans of the Yanjiao tribe. These people could be called ancestors. If the people of the tribe on the other side of the river saw this scene, they would probably kneel down again. Xiaofan stood there, quietly looking at the figures around him. The shaman walked to the fire seed and put down something, then stepped back, out of the fire pit. He stood by the fire pit and began to raise his arms, probably chanting. The surroundings seemed to be brighter. Xiaofan looked around him. The flames quickly rose up and wrapped around him. Because of the sudden rise of the flames, the surroundings became brighter. The people standing not far away were also illuminated. However, Xiaofan still couldn't see clearly. He could only make out a rough outline. Men and women, old and young. There were also some accompanying hunting dogs that had probably finished their engraving. Everyone was looking in the direction of the fire seed. No matter where Xiaofan looked, even if he could not see the expressions of those figures, he could feel that they were all looking in his direction. He lifted his foot and walked out of the center, out of the range of the fire. Xiaofan was like a bystander, walking in the crowd and looking at the figures around him. They did not change because of Xiaofan's walk, because the two of them existed at different points in time. These were all reenactments of the past, just like when Xiaofan followed the advance group into the Green Land and saw the Green Thief at night. The people standing around knelt down in the direction of the fire pit devoutly. The surroundings were covered with a layer of fire. Looking back, Xiaofan looked in the direction of the fire pit. The rolling flames were higher and fiercer than the ones he had seen in the Yanjiao tribe when he participated in the sacrificial ceremony. The surrounding sky seemed to be burning, dyed in the color of fire. It was incomparably magnificent. This was only the first of the 3 flames of the fire pit, but it was already so powerful. What would happen when he reached the 3rd flame? When he first saw the flame of the fire seed in the Yanjiao tribe, he thought it was incredible and magnificent. But now, seeing the scene in front of him, he knew what the real flame of the fire seed was. It was like a picture once drawn on a roll of animal skin. This was the scene of the glorious era. Just as Xiaofan stood by the fire pit in the old land of the Yanjiao tribe, looking at the images that had passed away for nearly 1,000 years, on the other side of the river far away from the central region. At this time, there were not many people in the Flaming Horns tribe who would go out. The mountain foot area was already dark. The night swallows were also flying around actively, staring at the houses, waiting for someone to come out. Then they would rush up and attack. The higher up the mountain, the more flames there were. Some warriors were burning fires in their houses. They were either cooking food or just sitting around the fire and talking. But these flames were nothing in the dark. At the top of the mountain, the shaman sensed something unusual. He rushed out of the stone house like a gust of wind and headed for the fire pit. The warriors who were guarding around the fire pit wanted to inform the shaman and the chief, but they didn't expect that the shaman had already come. Looking at the scene in the fire pit, the shaman seemed to be stunned. He stood there, his mind blank for a moment. In the fire pit, the bean-sized flame was now jumping violently. Then it suddenly rose, rolled up, and expanded to the whole fire pit. It was not the time for sacrifice, and no ceremony was held. The shaman didn't even do anything. But the flame in the fire pit was burning just like the annual sacrifice after winter. And it was burning by itself. Furthermore, the rolling flames were even more intense than the flames that were ignited during the annual sacrificial ceremony. This is. The chief who came after receiving the report was also stunned after seeing the scene in the fire pit. Chief Ao's words woke the shaman up from his blank state. He was just too excited to react. He's here. He found it. Xian found the old land of the Yinjiao. The shaman knelt on the ground and kowtowed in the direction of the fire pit. In the hearts of the tribesmen, the shaman had always been a master. But now he was kneeling on the ground and crying. But no one on the scene would laugh at him. They knelt on the ground together with the shaman. Although they didn't quite understand what it meant, they had a vague idea in their hearts that made them very excited. Xiao Xian had left the tribe for a long time. Since the end of the rainy season, now the winter was coming. No one knew whether Xiao Xian could cross the river safely, or what he would encounter after crossing the river safely. After all, he was just a young warrior. Although they all hoped that Xiao Xian could find something on the other side, they all felt uneasy. After all, there were too many dangers on the other side of the river. Could Xiao Xian solve them alone? But now, the change in the fire pit and the shaman's words told them that Xiao Xian not only crossed the river safely, but also found the old land of the tribe. Several old people who rushed over were so excited that they didn't know what to say. The people at the foot of the mountain had also noticed the changes on the mountain. The rising flames were too obvious, and the night swallows that had been flying around arrogantly just a moment ago had now retreated far away. Just like during the annual sacrifice, they were afraid. Old Ku walked out of the door and looked at the fire pit at the top of the mountain. He said to Caesar next to him, "Is that caused by Xian?" Caesar stared at the top of the mountain and looked at Old Ku. He made some noises from his nose, as if he was responding to Old Ku's words. Not only did the Yinjiao tribe have obvious changes, even on the other side of the river, no matter if it was in the central area or the border area, many people had changed. Today, Yan Shuo had gone out to the mountains to hunt a beast that wasn't too big. After his strength had increased, although the totem patterns were still faint, it was much better than before. Sometimes, he could even hunt some beasts back for his wife and children. At this moment, Yan Shuo and his family were sitting around the bonfire, eating barbecued meat and chatting. Yan Shuo noticed something and looked at his arm. The faint totem pattern had actually appeared again. Moreover, the pattern was darker and clearer than before. He didn't say anything. He just clenched his fist tightly and smiled at his wife and children. His eyes reflected the bright light of the fire. "I feel that the thing we have been waiting for is coming soon." On the grassland. He was lighting the fire at home and processing some of the herbs he had dug up today. He was busy when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He didn't wake his wife who was already asleep. He added some firewood to the fire and hurriedly got up to get a basin of water. With the help of the fire, he looked at the reflection in the basin. He saw that there were some patterns on his face. The color was not deep, and because the light was too dim, he couldn't see clearly. But he knew what it was. It was exactly the same as the patterns on his father's face that year. That kind of power was real, and not the illusory and unpredictable feeling from before. It existed in his body, in every piece of flesh. Flowing by a wide river. Wooden boats that were several meters high and even more than 10 meters high were docked on the shore. Compared to the boats of other tribes, these boats were already considered luxurious. Not far from these large ships, some small, tattered boats were densely docked on another shore. Compared to the large ships, these small boats looked pitiful. Gathering on the shore next to the boat belt, some wanderers gathered there. Every day they had to work until very late before coming back. Then they all gathered here to make a big fire and get some food to eat. It was the same now. They laughed and talked. Compared to those who had nowhere to go and had to endure hunger every day, they were better off. Even if their days were not very comfortable. While they were talking, the people around the fire seemed to have seen something incredible and were all stunned. There was no more chatter and laughter. A few people who were slightly taller than the others who were topless and eating felt the strange situation around them. Just as they were about to ask, they saw that everyone was pointing at them as if they were being strangled. They couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. However, when they looked at where the crowd was pointing and saw their naked upper bodies, they were also shocked. Their hands trembled, and even their precious stone rice bowls fell to the ground. Half a bowl of meat soup spilled on the ground. If it was any other time, they would probably feel sorry for it. They would even lie on the ground and lick it, picking up the bits of meat that fell to the ground and eating it. But now, no one paid attention to the meat scraps. Totem patterns. No one knew who spoke first, but it was like a torch that ignited a barrel of oil. Totem patterns. Although these totem patterns didn't last long, this night was destined to make some people lose sleep, and it also made some people have a drastic change in their mentality. And Xiaofan, who caused all this but didn't know it, stood by the fire pit in the old land of the Yanjiao tribe, watching the scene disappear. Everything returned to the original ruins. There were no tall stone houses, no stone statues, no dense crowds, no shamans. Everyone was gone. The fire pit was not what it used to be, and the 6 extended branches had disappeared. Xiaofan let out a long sigh. The glory of the past is gone. The scene was illusory, and only he could see it. However, when Xiaofan saw the situation on the surrounding grassland, his pupils shrank. Where the 6 branches extended from the fire seed like pulses, the flowers and plants that grew on them had all disappeared, leaving only the bare ground. It seemed that it wasn't all illusory. Just now, the 6 branches of the fire seed had really appeared. At this time, in the Wuxia tribe, which was not too far away from the ferocious beast mountain forest. There's something strange in the forest. Although it's not clear, I have a feeling that the biggest threat of the Wuxia tribe lies there. The shaman of the Wuxia tribe, with a bone ornament on his face, was facing the direction of the forest, as if he wanted to devour people. The chief of the Wuxia tribe, who was standing beside the shaman, looked at the direction of the forest and ordered the people he called over. Go get ready. Tomorrow, we'll take the Wuxia beasts into the forest. Chapter 193. Early in the morning, Xiaofan woke up on the high stone pillar. He yawned and stretched his arms and legs, then looked around. At first glance, there was no difference from yesterday, but with a little closer look, he could see the lines extending in 6 directions among the flowers and plants. Coming down from the stone pillar, Xiaofan ate the bird eggs given by the Lu tribe. Cha-Cha, who had hunted for food early in the morning, was flying in the sky and didn't find any danger around for the time being. The fire pit in the old haunt had changed and was covered by layers of mud and stones. Xiaofan wanted to dig, but on second thought, there was no fire seed, so it didn't matter whether the fire pit was buried or not. Let's leave it like this for now. With the fire pit as the center, Xiaofan recalled the illusions he saw last night and walked around. The changes were too big. If he hadn't seen the illusions last night, Xiaofan really couldn't imagine what kind of buildings there used to be. Originally, he wanted to dig up some special objects, but after walking around, he didn't find anything. Maybe something was buried deep in the ground, or maybe it was destroyed long ago. It was also possible that it was taken away by the Yanjiao tribesmen when they left. Xiaofan planned to search carefully, but suddenly there was an eagle's cry in the sky. His hands paused, and he put aside a damaged pot he just dug out. Xiaofan sneaked into the woods in the direction of Chacha's warning. Early in the morning, the Wuxia tribe sent more than 100 people into the woods in 5 teams to search for people. The shaman and the chief told them that if they saw people who were not from the tribe, no matter who they were, no matter what they looked like, no matter what they offered, kill them. Those who could bring back their heads would be rewarded by the shaman and the chief. Even though the shaman and the chief didn't say who were in the woods, or how many people there were, everyone was excited when they heard that there would be a reward. They all wanted to get the credit. Those who had just returned from the tribal war were not sent out. In order to find out what was going on, the shaman and the chief decided to temporarily send out more than 100 people to investigate the situation. The others who were left in the tribe looked at those who were walking towards the ferocious beasts' mountain forest with envy. There were so many people and the Wuxia beasts, so there shouldn't be too much danger. It would be great if they could make contributions. The people who were about to enter the forest were envied by their clansmen. They led the Wuxia beasts and went on their way proudly. The Wuxia tribe didn't raise cattle, sheep, and horses on a large scale. First, they weren't interested in raising them. Second, which was the most important point, they put more energy into raising the Wuxia beasts. The so-called Wuxia beasts didn't exist naturally. They were bred by the Wuxia tribe using a variety of wild beasts and even some ferocious beasts. They were much stronger than wild beasts. Because the inheritance of the Wuxia beasts was not stable, each generation of the Wuxia beasts was different from the previous generation. For the sake of convenience and fame, the Wuxia tribe named them Wuxia beasts. The Wuxia beasts were bred by directional selection. For hundreds of years, some of them could be inherited stably. However, the Wuxia tribe needed ferocious beasts, which was their first choice. Therefore, even if there were many deformed species and even many defects, they were still kept by the Wuxia tribe. Those beasts with stable inheritance but weak attack power were more often used as food. These Wuxia beasts were larger than the hounds trained by ordinary tribes, and they all looked different. Some looked like dogs, some looked like cats, and some looked like cats. Their sizes were also different, and the patterns on their bodies were even more complicated. The only thing they had in common was that their eyes were very fierce, and they were extremely cruel. When they looked at people, it seemed that they would rush up and bite them. When waging war against other tribes, the Wuxia beasts would also be used by the Wuxia beasts to track those threats that must be killed. The Wuxia beasts were tied by some thick and strong straw ropes that had been soaked in special treatment. If the totem warriors of the Wuxia tribe were not strong enough, they couldn't pull these ferocious beasts and had to prevent them from biting off the ropes. 100 people were divided into 5 teams and entered the ferocious beasts' mountain forest. Each team took 3 or 4 Wuxia beasts. They were not close to each other, but not too far away. If a team had an abnormal situation, they would whistle loudly and the nearby teams would rush over after hearing it. Although they were very excited by the words of the shaman and the chief when they left the tribe, they couldn't help but feel nervous after entering the ferocious beasts' mountain forest. No one spoke, only the Wuxia beasts growled from time to time. They didn't find any abnormalities or any trace of people. They thought that with the Wuxia beasts, they could track the target after entering the forest. Unexpectedly, after entering the forest for a while, they met several beasts, but still found nothing. When hunting in the forest, Xiaofan had already learned how to hide his traces and breath better. There were so many ferocious beasts in the forest that were good at tracking. At that time, they hadn't been discovered when they were hunting, so now they wouldn't be easily tracked by the Wuxia beasts. They entered the forest early in the morning. At noon, all the teams were a little tired. They didn't find the target, but they met several threats from other animals and plants. They couldn't hide their figures. Every team had more than 20 people, plus the Wuxia beasts. How could they hide? Besides, they were not good at this. Why can't we find the target? A warrior of the Wuxia tribe said during the break. I really hope we can find the target soon and take his head back to get the reward. Another warrior said with a longing look. You? Let's see who can act faster. I won't give the prey to you. Maybe there is more than one person. Maybe there are several people. Even if there is only one person, we can split him. Someone interrupted. That's right. Anyway, it's up to our abilities. Whoever grabs it will get it. While they were talking, a man on the side suddenly said, Hey, what's that? The leader stood up and walked over to a big stone. Usually, they wouldn't care if they saw such a stone. But now, this stone didn't seem to be an ordinary stone. From where they were before, they could only see one side of the boulder. When he walked to the other side, he saw the indentations on the boulder that had been scraped away. Who scratched it? The leader asked. The others shook their heads. The scratches on the moss were relatively new. If they weren't scratched by their own people, it meant that someone had been here just now. The leader was not the only one who thought of this. The others also reacted. Someone really came here? Great. What? Yanjiao? What's Yanjiao? The man who saw the words on the stone asked. I heard that there used to be a big tribe here, but it died out later. Could it be this tribe? It's very likely. Speaking of this, a strong excitement rose in everyone's heart. What a big tribe. Although he didn't know what a big tribe was like 1,000 years ago, he could tell from the big tribes in the central region that each tribe had some very precious things. Maybe there were even precious things like jades and fire crystals that people coveted. At the thought of this, everyone in the team was itching. They also knew that the forest was very dangerous and there were many ferocious beasts. But now they had more people, and they should be fine if they were careful, right? The people who sneaked into the forest didn't come for this big tribe, did they? Someone said. No, we can't let others take it away. We have to hurry. Without the leader saying more, the others hurried to stand up. They had gained a lot of benefits from the tribal war, and when they encountered the remains of such a big tribe, the first thing they thought of was naturally whether they could get something good. Yanjiao said that the people of the Wuxia tribe were very greedy. Many times, such greed would suppress other emotions in their hearts, so that they would do something crazy in many people's eyes. In recent years, the slave owners became more and more fond of coming to the central region, especially to the places where the Wuxia tribe had been, where there were many tourists. Before leaving, a warrior of the Wuxia tribe pulled down his leather pants and planned to pee on the big stone engraved with Yanjiao before leaving. For the tribe, this kind of stone engraved with the tribe's name or totem was not just a boundary marker. It was very important to the people of the tribe, just like the rock paintings of the Mang tribe. If someone peed on the rock paintings, he would be fiercely attacked by the people of the Mang tribe. According to the tribal rules, this was a kind of provocation. However, a tribe that had been extinct for nearly 1,000 years, what was there to be afraid of? The people of the Wuxia tribe didn't take this seriously at all. Even if someone came to find them, they would just kill him. Just now, someone directly cut it with a knife, but unfortunately, the stone was good, so he didn't directly cut a big hole. It was better to go back and directly move it away, and then make some other tools. The team planned to continue their search. After a few steps, the leader felt something was wrong and looked back. Beside the big stone, the man still maintained his original posture. Could it be that he couldn't pee or what? Hey, are you done? The leader asked. No one answered. The other warriors also complained. If you want to pee, then just pee. If it wasn't for the fact that we had to hurry over to find the target, we would also pee. But why are you just standing there? Stalling for time? What if the credit was taken away by others? When someone was about to speak again, he was stopped by the leader. As the leader of this team, he was not stupid. He had found something wrong. He carefully walked over, took out his stone knife and poked the man standing there. The man who had been standing there fell down without any sound. Everyone was nervous. When did he get hurt? Why didn't the Wuxia beasts notice it? Rustle, rustle, rustle. Somewhere in the bushes there was a slight sound, which was hard to notice if one didn't pay attention. The three Wuxia beasts had good hearing, so they suddenly became manic. They roared and rushed over there. The people who led the Wuxia beasts also loosened their hands and let them chase after the man. The leader winked at the others and asked them to be careful. Then he led the others to chase after the man. The sound in the bushes was louder. It seemed that someone had just left here quickly. Within 2 breaths, he had run far away. Go after him. Ah! A warrior was hung up by one leg. He struggled softly for a few times and then stopped making any sound. There was a thorn in his body. Then, 3 more warriors of the Wuxia tribe were tied up and hung up one after another. After being hung up, their cries were stopped by a thorn. At this time, the others were also frightened. They looked at the dense forest around them timidly. The bushes and weeds around them were getting thicker and thicker, which seriously blocked their sight. They could only judge by their hearing. They also wondered how many people were hiding around them. One of the warriors just cursed, and suddenly a sharp pain came from his ankle. He thought he would be hung up like the previous warriors, but he didn't expect that the strength of his foot directly dragged him to the side at a very fast speed. After another man was dragged away, he stopped making any sound. The people who stayed there didn't chase after him. They held weapons and looked around vigilantly. They slowed down their pace of chasing after the Wuxia beast. The leader waved his knife to cut a pile of weeds next to him. He didn't see anything suspicious, so he spat and cursed in his heart. Until now, they hadn't even seen the enemy's shadow, but they had been tricked by the enemy's traps again and again. However, they couldn't find where the traps were set. In just a few breaths, 4 people had been killed. This feeling of grievance made them very unhappy. They were irritable, and now they couldn't keep calm. In the past, they had never encountered such a situation when they waged war against other tribes. At that time, they would shake their bodies and increase their strength to the extreme. They would rush over with their knives and cut anyone they saw. But it was not the case here. This made them very uncomfortable. Moreover, this was the ferocious beasts' mountain forest. They had to worry about ferocious beasts or other threats that might appear at any time. Now they had to pay attention to their feet. The Wuxia beast ran far away, and they couldn't call it back. It seemed that someone led the Wuxia beast away first, and then the people hiding in the forest came to deal with them. The leader thought in his heart. Do you want to blow the whistle? Someone asked the leader. No. How long had it been? How could he blow the whistle? If others saw it, he would lose face, and his prestige would be damaged. The leader's eyes were full of haze. Whoosh! Another person was pulled up by the neck. He opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. He wanted to shout, but he was tied up so tightly that he couldn't make a sound. His face was distorted. Puff! A wooden splinter pierced his neck. The poison made him lose consciousness quickly, and he stopped struggling. The leaders looked at the sky. Silk thread? Such silk thread. Was it the 8 Limbs tribe? That shouldn't be the case. The 8 Limbs tribe was a little far from here, and the 8 Limbs tribe couldn't interfere here. It didn't matter if the Wuxia tribe destroyed several small tribes, but if a big tribe interfered, it would affect more than just the surrounding forces. Besides, what was so important about the ferocious beast's mountain forest? The more they thought about it, the more confused they were. The leader stopped thinking about it. What he needed to do now was to find out the suspicious people here and kill them. Chapter 194. There were a lot of weeds around, and there were bushes every few steps. Go back. The leader found that the environment here was unfavorable to them, so he made a prompt decision to let the rest of the people retreat along the original path. Although they didn't know what kind of traps were around, at least there were no traps along the way. Just as he was thinking about this, 2 more screams sounded. 2 warriors fell to the ground. One of them was stabbed with a poisonous thorn like the previous one, while the other had his neck slit. Rustle, 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 someone was running quickly in the grass. The leader's face was ferocious, and he quickly chased after him, but he was not careless. He even figured out the movement pattern of the figure in front of him, and almost stepped on the place where the former stepped. However, many people behind him were not so lucky. They were all tripped by something, cut by a knife, and then tripped again after 2 steps. Then, they fell down and never got up again. The leader heard the movement behind him, and guessed that his men might be in trouble. However, he didn't stop. Instead of slowing down, he sped up again, and caught up with the figure in the grass in front of him. He pulled out a ferocious smile on his face. Finally, I found you. Now, go to hell. Cut off the opponent's head, and take it back to get a reward. Maybe he could get some fire crystals to improve himself, and maybe he could be promoted to a senior totem warrior. He had made countless contributions, and was only 1 step away from a senior totem warrior. As long as he made 1 more contribution and got some benefits, he would be promoted to a higher level, and his status in the tribe would be higher. He would be qualified to have more women, food, resources, and power. Thinking of this, he became more excited, and the totem patterns on his face made him look more ferocious. He suddenly increased the strength of his feet, and waved his right arm holding the stone knife, bringing a gust of wind. Feeling the wind from the blade behind him, Xiaofan's right foot fiercely stomped on the ground. The ground under his feet emitted a soft bang sound, as if a solid block of earth had been shaken apart. His entire body borrowed the force of the impact and abruptly turned around, rushing towards the opponent. At this time, the leader saw the real appearance of Xiaofan. He had never seen the totem patterns on Xiaofan's face before, and Xiaofan's young age also surprised him. However, none of this was important. He only needed to kill the other party. Both of them were very fast, and in the blink of an eye, they were only a few steps apart from each other. At this moment, Xiaofan took a few more steps, and in this extremely short period of time, he changed directions several times. His figure was somewhat erratic, as if he was slashing to the left and dodging to the right. For a moment, the leader still couldn't figure out what Xiaofan was thinking. He hesitated for a moment. At the same time, the momentum of the stone knife in his hand changed slightly. It was no longer as straightforward. He wanted to determine which direction Xiaofan would go based on his movements, but suddenly he met Xiaofan's eyes. At this moment, he couldn't help but shudder. Xiaofan's eyes reminded him of a few years ago when he came to the ferocious beast forest with a few people from the tribe. They encountered a ferocious beast that was not only strong, but also very cunning and good at hiding. They couldn't avoid it even if they pretended to be dead. The few people who came in together were all intermediate totem warriors. They were arrogant outside, but more than half of them were killed by the ferocious beast, and the rest fled quickly. At that time, the ferocious beast didn't look conspicuous or big, but they were so scared that they didn't even have the courage to fight back. If they didn't escape, they would die. This was the only thought he had at that time, and it was also a nightmare that lasted for many years. This time, he heard that there was a big reward, and he felt that his strength had improved a lot, so he entered the forest again. And now, he once again had the same thought as back then. At the moment when he met Xiaofan's eyes, he had an illusion, as if he had returned to the situation at that time, when he faced the ferocious beast that made them tremble in fear. The leader's body paused for a very short moment, and a voice in his heart was screaming, "Run! Run! Run away from here!" In this kind of 2 versus 1 battle, the slightest negligence could make the difference between life and death. Blow the whistle. He only had time to shout this sentence before his chest was pierced by a stone knife. After killing one person, Xiaofan didn't stop. He reached out his other hand and grabbed a wrist. After the leader, there was another person who followed. Perhaps in terms of strength, he might not be the leader's opponent, but in terms of speed, he was comparable. Just now, he clearly saw that the leader was in a disadvantageous situation, but he didn't help. Instead, he chose to take advantage of the opportunity to sneak attack. He didn't expect that he would be caught. Xiaofan exerted force in his hand, and with a crack, the wrist holding the knife was crushed. The intense pain from his wrist made him scream in pain. Naturally, he couldn't hold the ivory knife in his hand. Xiaofan caught the ivory knife that was polished white with one hand, and with the other hand holding the stone knife, he chopped upwards. All of this happened in a very short time. The person holding the ivory knife was still in shock, regret, and the pain in his wrist. He didn't have time to think about how to avoid this attack. He still had a dark brown stone knife in his other hand. He instinctively raised it, wanting to block Xiaofan's knife first. Bang! The 2 stone knives collided. The man felt a strong force pass through the knife in his hand and hit his arm violently, as if it was going to break. Such a tyrannical force forcefully lifted his arm up, and his entire body fell backward along with his arm, as if someone was dragging him from behind. Because of this, he didn't have a chance to cover himself. Xiaofan's stone knife had already pierced his body. After dealing with the 2 people who followed him, Xiaofan wiped the blood on the stone knife with the grass next to him. After many years of hunting, he had wandered on the edge of life and death many times. After coming here, he had seen the cruel war between tribes. Xiaofan was used to this kind of ruthless method. Taking a long breath, Xiaofan heard a whistle not far away. Someone had heard the leader's last cry and blew the whistle for help. The people closest to here should be rushing here. Xiaofan didn't turn back to deal with the people who were left behind. The smell of people and the noise over there should be enough to attract the hungry birds, right? Xiaofan specially found this place. Perhaps because of the fire pit, there weren't many dangerous plants and fierce beasts in the old haunt. When he looked around in the morning, he saw some bird footprints. From the footprints and some traces in the bushes, he could roughly guess what kind of birds they were. They were birds similar to the forest raccoons. When they pecked, it was like being hit by a hoe. It was enough to make those people suffer. Looking at the sky and the cha-cha's flight path, Xiaofan didn't pay attention to the people behind him and quickly left. The person who blew the whistle wanted to retreat after seeing the people around him fall down one by one. The reward was built on the foundation of being alive. He didn't want to lose his life. At this moment, he heard the leaders shout. Naturally, he blew the whistle as hard as he could. He ran back while blowing the whistle. He was too nervous and didn't pay attention to his feet. He tripped over something and thought it was a trap or some dangerous vines. He didn't even look at it. After a while, he realized that it was just a piece of soil. He took a long breath and was about to get up when he heard the sound of footsteps. Did other people come to help? No. Those weren't human footsteps. He got up and wanted to run away, but he found that the same footsteps could be heard on the way back. A figure jumped out from the bushes and went straight to the person who still had the whistle in his mouth. They didn't have obvious wings. They weren't even as big as the Lu tribe's birds, but they had big beaks. Their eyes were eager. It was the look of someone who saw food. Ah! Screams resounded through the forest. The people who heard the whistle couldn't help but pause and feel a chill in their hearts. At this moment, Xiaofan, who was already far away, was squatting on a big tree and looking at a bear not far from the tree. There were many kinds of giant bears in the forest, but this one was undoubtedly the strongest among the giant bears. Maybe their weight wasn't the heaviest among the giant bears, but their speed and strength were definitely not weak. They had slender limbs compared to other bears. This characteristic made them look less clumsy than other bears. Instead, it allowed them to walk faster for longer periods of time, move more easily, and run faster. It had a short and wide jaw with well-developed muscles, a huge body, and arrogant canine teeth that made people feel intimidated at first glance. And in its mouth, those huge molars could easily crush the bones of many wild beasts and even many ferocious beasts. Sometimes they didn't even hunt for their own food, but directly robbed the prey of other predators. Xiaofan had encountered several situations where wolves were robbed by giant bears. With just a glance, Xiaofan, who had followed hunting teams for many years in the forest, could judge that this species was at the top of the food chain, at least in this area. At this moment, the bear was anxiously looking for something. It sniffed, stood up, hugged the tree trunk, and licked a fork. Feeling that it was not enough, it easily broke the branch that was as thick as a person's arm with its big palm and put it in its mouth to bite. After a while, it felt bored and threw away the branch that was almost bitten into pieces. It sniffed and continued to follow the smell. At this time, many bears like to look for honey to store enough nutrients for the winter. Xiaofan just found some honey and used it to lure the bear. He was alone, but there were at least 100 people from the Wuxia tribe in the forest. This was the old haunt of the Yanjiao tribe. Sometimes, you knew it was dangerous, but you couldn't take a step back. The old haunt was the reverse scale of the Yanjiao tribe. Even if Xiaofan couldn't stay here all the time, at least for now, he could try his best to stop those people. It would be better if he could teach them a bloody lesson and make them afraid. Fortunately, there were many ferocious beasts in the forest. It was a strange but familiar environment. Looking at the figure flying in the sky, Xiaofan slid down from the tree and sneaked into the forest. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.